Ah, sweet. Man-made horrors beyond our comprehension. I can't wait to see a robot that can only feel pain. Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another example of Lore Ramblings. The name's Adam.
I'm Imsit, and today we're talking about a fan game for World of Darkness, specifically Chronicles of Darkness. This is Genius the Transgression.
So, last time we covered a fan game in the World of Darkness setting, it was Princess the Hopeful, and that didn't necessarily go too well. Some screaming was involved. I very clearly remember Genius being pretty good. I made a point to read through as much as I could before the stream. It's a pretty thick book. I have issues with it, but it actually does hold up a lot better than you think. And I think some of it's because the guy who made it actually went on to make Vampire the Masquerade Night Roads. Like he legitimately became a member of one of the developers of one of the light novel games for Vampire.
Oh,
So there
proof.
is actually some genuine quality. I will make comments about this because this is a very rough edit and there are enough issues in it, but I will say I think this one's is a notably better book. It just doesn't look it because, yeah, this is our cover. It's not the most inspired thing in the world. It's very rough, very much an attempt to just have something there. And, well, it then opens up with one of the longest opening stories that I've ever seen in any World of Darkness. It is a book stopping 16 pages long, which I do think that's kind of a fuck up. I personally think this is a bad idea. But on the other hand, it kind of weirdly enough gets you into the correct mindset for Genius. It's compelling to read. I would suggest it because the long and short of it is essentially a young therapist is looking through a mental asylum patient who claimed to work on rockets during the war. What war? She originally thought it was Vietnam. Nah, turns out it was World War II, and he's rambling about things like snake people and Lemurians. And along the way, she starts coming up with crazy ideas, goaded on by him. Things go horribly wrong, and you kind of get to learn just how awful it is to be a genius. But yeah, overall, great story. I just think that you could probably cut it down notably. And it, if you're not interested in how it goes, you will bounce off of this book. That is something that I will complain about. I do think it's too long. But it is excellent writing, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, it certainly is. As
Other
I,
problem, this book does not have bookmarks. It never was given any bookmarks, so...
what do you mean? You can clearly see it,
Oh yeah, the bookmarks. Let
right?
me show you. It's right here. Yeah, see? Right here.
And also all the backgrounds. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, the
only.
high quality backgrounds. I have no idea why it's all in webdings, though.
Oh yeah, makes sense to me.
Nah, it doesn't. It's all German to me. I think it might be German webdings.
So the game of Genius is that you are a person that has now. It's kind of like Mage, let's say.
I mean, it's
You're
very
now.
much like Mage.
Yeah,
The only difference is that, unlike Mage, you can't make reality cry without at least following somewhat the scientific method. Somewhat. You don't really follow that anymore. Your brain doesn't work too good no more after you make your breakthrough, so to speak.
you got a breakthrough in something.
Essentially, what happens is you start coming up with interesting and kind of crazy ideas that, for some reason, they just work. You can't really explain why they work. When you try to replicate the result, it doesn't necessarily work, especially if you do it in front of other people. Like, you can't re-demonstrate why it worked. You can't really explain why it worked, at least not
And
without
while the
sounding insane.
and while the mach- whatever device or thing that you create works for you, when you put it in the hands of someone else, it breaks down. There's something bad happens.
Something horribly wrong will usually go. Although that doesn't usually happen until after your catalyst. So essentially, some depending on who you ask, you are either the fount of inspiration or some alien intelligence is essentially digging into your brain like a meat puppet to make its wonders known to the world. It depends on who you ask. Magical autism, that's actually a good idea. That's actually a great summary for how geniuses work because during the process, things like dealing with other humans kind of falls by the wayside in regard to your research. It is difficult for a lot of people who become geniuses to essentially deal with what's going on in their life. Because let's be blunt, usually when you become a genius, it's pretty traumatic. Some horrible things often happen. And this game, Genius the Transgression, is about those poor bastards. The people who essentially have caught the fire of Prometheus and are trying to explain it to the normies. And it's going horribly wrong.
And I do think the
It's a game
sources
about
and
being mad and being aware of it. Or not being
ins-
aware of it and trying to enact your own new world order.
that the sources and inspirations really fit
So,
for books. Of
yeah.
course, we've got Frankenstein, we've got the Isle of Dr. Moreau, we have Doc Savage.
Which I think that's a pretty good choice. It's not the one I'd immediately go for first. I would have immediately have gone with Moreau or Frankenstein. But Doc Savage, not bad.
Well, it's the idea of someone who has high obligation, somebody who is a mad scientist, but actually uses their research to save the day.
And that's kind of the thing. During your catalyst, during your breakthrough, morality just becomes kind of a suggestion to you. It's all about the experiments, even if you're not really committed to the scientific process anymore. It's kind of hard to do that. So what you do is you try to hold what little bit of humanity you have, and that's usually in trying to do good with your new devices, your wonders. Or alternatively, you just say screw it and try to build a death ray on the moon. You could do that. It's just you're very quickly going to become the genius equivalent of, I think it's called Draugr in Modern Vampire. They're sometimes called whites, sometimes called Draugr,
Your zero humanity condition.
essentially.
I
Obligation
do
is
like,
your
yeah.
humanity if you're a genius
I do like
because you're not
for the
really
mo-
human,
yeah, for the
mentally at
movies,
least.
The Fly.
I will complain
Which,
about that
yeah,
because first off, I'm sorry, writer, you are wrong. The Fly remake is actually a pretty good movie. And second off, how dare you not reference the even better 1950s version? And by even better, I mean it's really slow paced, but it has some really fucked up scenes.
Comics. They bring
Also,
up Akira.
Metropolis. That's a
Yep.
good one.
They bring up for comics early Batman, Akira, television.
No, no,
They
you're
bring
you're
up to the
missing the hit.
venture.
You're missing the hit webcomic Girl Genius, which a
Uh,
a weird choice, but I actually don't hate it. It's not like Sailor Nothing because it's not. It's clearly not the first inspiration for this. The version of
television.
Princess we looked at didn't reference the actual material. That was one of the reasons I was so angry at it was if you're going to work with the material you're touching, you probably should use the actual examples out there, the ones that made what you're trying to do happen. Doc Savage is great. Girl Genius,
Yeah.
but you could definitely use it. Most importantly, though, the Venture Brothers.
Yeah. If you're referencing the Venture Brothers, that's automatically a win for me.
What can I say? It's one of
Especially
the
in
best examples of mad science. You see Dr. Orpheus, and then you also see, well, Rusty.
well, the point they use here is for a genius that sees their inventions past their sell-by date. At the same time, though, I've always been digging an RPG that could fit the universe of Venture Brothers. Maybe this would work.
It easily could. And as we go through this, I'll actually explain that I do think even though there are some people, and there is good complaints about why this book can be arguably pointless, because let's be blunt, you could just play an Iteration X technocrat mage, and it would give you a lot of what this book does.
But the difference is that's World of Darkness, not Chronicles of Darkness.
And you can still fluff mages that way to a degree, because that's how Chronicles works. It's a kit bash.
Ah,
But one of the reasons I kind of like this is the concepts of mania and how it scorches people, how it doesn't face reality well, how it is almost rejected by reality. Doesn't that remind you of a splat that Chronicles has?
oh yeah. Uh, Beast.
Yeah, Beast. It very clearly is tied to Beast. No, it's tied to Prometheans. Mania could be used as a variation of Azoth, and with that, you can easily turn Genius into a Demiurge splat.
I'm pretty sure this book came out before Promethean, but yeah, that would definitely fit.
It totally did. This was
Also,
pretty early on in the Chronicles of Darkness, so this is before I think even Mage.
not Nito. Jimmy Neutron is not listed as an inspiration,
It could
particularly
work.
because, yeah, I guess so.
No. I like that more than their choice of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
And
I
Neon Genesis Evangelion.
well, I mean, if you think about it, you do commit some amazing war crimes with the creation of the Ava units. Keep in mind they're powered by the souls of the mothers of the pilots.
Only a little.
Well, only part of it. We didn't need to use all of it.
And music, Abney Park, Bjork, Devo, and Nine Inch Nails.
I
If
don't
this
usually
isn't
think of
Scream's,
music, but Devo I think nails the energy
yeah.
correctly.
Though if this isn't Scream made at some point in the 2000s.
I mean, in fairness, Nine Inch Nails also could work because they have some interesting industrial grunge sort of things. So another example of formatting failure that in the hands of an editor, this could be fixed up. It then immediately jumps into the definitions. And there's a lot of them. I will bitch about how this is just kind of shoved into your face, much like it is with Princess. Because let's be honest, you're not going to remember easily things like Epicrato versus, say, like Hoffnung or Illuminated or Lemurians. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare to get your head around this. There's a lot. I don't think it's quite as bad as Princess, but it's enough that I will complain that there's a lot of stuff that they just kind of shove right into you. Like the third race, because yes, you can fight snake people. They're still around. They even have a term for underage geniuses, boy geniuses. Sadly, it's not a Jimmy Neutron, it's a Wesley.
But moving on to the first chapter, which explains the basics.
So the cosmology of the setting, which, again,
So,
this is kind of
geniuses,
long.
they're a normal human, but then they get something, usually from a traumatic experience, which is a breakthrough, and they start seeing the world as they see it,
It's more
not
that
as the world sees it.
they uncover and see something that only they can see, and based on the emotions that are accumulated during this period, that kind of determines what they naturally see the world as, at least somewhat. But they also see possibility. That's one of the things that drives them mad, is just the possibility of things. Like, it could just be something as innocuous as, I want to make a better pizza oven. And through your research and science, you accidentally go completely mad because you not only cracked the code for a better pizza oven, but you have realized unified culinary theory, which is complete gibberish to everyone else. That's another thing about geniuses are, while they tend to be scientists or philosophers or mathematicians or engineers, anyone could hypothetically become a genius. And out of all of what they call metanormals, which include things like vampires and mage, they're probably the most common. As in, there's potentially a few million of them around the world.
One thing I do like they point out is that 1 in 3 geniuses has a PhD or equivalent. 2 in 3 will claim they have a PhD or equivalent, or will put doctor, professor in their names and not feel guilty about it.
Oh yeah, the statistics are funny, but this is something I honestly think you should cut. I like it. It's neat to read through, but the reason I'm being a little harsh, like I like this book, but I'm being harsh on this specifically because I'm trying to be fair to other fan splats because this one is clearly more my jam. I'm trying to be even-handed. This can be cut. This can
It
be
is
cut and it will
400,
save you a
yeah,
few pages.
a few out of 488.
Oh, if you properly format this, you can cut it down to as low as 350 easily. And that's before you put art assets in it.
And so, though, because of the breakthrough that you experience and you're starting to see the world differently, you kind of get trapped by it. Since you can't really share it, but you want to engage with it, it slowly takes over your life to the point where morality gets thrown to the wayside.
It does. One of the big things that you become obsessed with is just you essentially get drawn like a moth to a light bulb towards this wondrous truth that you try to explain. But first off, is it even true? Is this true? Are you even telling truth? Is this reality? And depending on the mad scientist you're dealing with, they might actually say no. We'll get
Eh,
into them. There's different points of views
Yeah.
between the mad sciences.
Those who fall completely are called the Unmata. Those are, yeah, your Draugr, your zero humanity type
No, they're
creatures.
not actually. They're the equivalent of they're more the equivalent of like marauders. Basically what
Ah,
happens is geniuses are always on the brink of some form of madness. They're self-aware, but during their research at any point their grip on reality can just completely shatter. And what they see is what they think is reality itself. Everyone else is wrong. Is it perhaps my experiments that are incorrect and that the world is different to what I believe? No, it is reality who is wrong. And a lot of Unmeta, in fact, quite a few of them, would form what becomes known as Lemuria, Lemuria being one of the largest and most ancient of these mad genius orders, and essentially the antagonists of the setting.
yeah, because it turns out Limeria actually did exist.
It did.
The
And
whole
snake
snake
people did
people
exist too.
and everything, until that entire theory was discredited.
Oh no, they made them. The snake people were one of their greatest wonders. Collectively, Lemuria created the third race. And what ultimately happened, though, and this is what absolutely fucked them, was during around the time of the collapse of the Ming, the Lemurians got very terrified and pissed off at the more technologically advanced Chinese mad geniuses because they tended to be more independent. They spent a lot of their effort crushing it, and during this, Europe manages to develop a variety of free thinking mad geniuses who say, this Lemuria shit's kind of lame. It culminates in many secret wars, up to and including Lemuria in its last gasp, aiding some funny mustache man. That does not go well for them, and they're essentially in its death throes. They're still around mainly because they have a lot of money built up over generations, but them as an institution's kind of only kept alive by a lot of mad geniuses finding their sense of reality being validated as true, being very nice. Because that's the other funny thing about Lemuria is each and every Lemurian believes there's a point where humanity was wrong and their reality understanding is wrong, ranging from something as simple as general relativity is bullshit to no, the Earth is flat and there is the celestial spheres.
And then the third group you
There
have
are
are,
Lemurians who legitimately think the scientific method was a mistake.
yeah. Then the third group of, I guess, how do we say, the antagonists are the Illuminated.
So the
Those
Illuminated
are,
are your Draugr. These are
yeah,
your
those
Humanity Zero nightmares.
these are the people who are just, as it says, just consumed by their own inspiration.
They're not even human at all. Like there's no personality anymore. It's just the experiments themselves. It is the visions of only they can see. There is no morality. They are pure in their intent.
You know, I think would be a perfect example of this. Uh, Big Mountain from Fallout New Vegas. The scientists with the brains in their jars.
I think they still have slightly more humanity than an Illuminated, even if it's only barely.
I think if you go with the ending where, like the cut ending where you did take over and become one of them, that's that's illuminated.
Yeah, that would work. Essentially, you have no understanding of morality. They're also called illuminated because the light of madness, literally madness itself, shines in their eyes. Their brain has been completely burned out by the sheer force of ideas from reality, what could have been, what was, what never is, impossibility. Who knows?
But for the rest of the geniuses, they group themselves, as always in a World of Darkness game, into several different foundations.
So before we do, one of the things geniuses have to highlight, since we're talking about the death of Lemuria, one of the other things that geniuses have to struggle with is a lot of them were academic geniuses in their own right. Like before they became mad scientists, they were either in the field, not necessarily on the cutting edge, or they were, and that's what caused them to go nuts. This kind of destroys their career, and that's something they kind of have to they often stew over. And the consensus, like scientists in general, it's kind of difficult because to get money to do your mad science, you kind of have to work in the scientific community, right?
But you know that what they're doing is bullshit. Like
Well,
it
no, it's
doesn't
not that
work.
you know that what they do is bullshit. You might actually agree that what they're doing is fine. Your ability to explain the things that you know and have seen isn't almost impossible. In fact, there is actually a mechanic in the game. It's called Jabir, where you essentially ramble insane technobabble at people. It's gibberish because what you understand, you cannot express because it is possibly impossible, at least according to real space laws. But you made it work, so therefore it has to be real, at least in some ways, right? That's what you think, but also is what you think really real? That's one of the things I kind of like about this splat is you almost kind of have to gaslight yourself while also trying to not gaslight yourself.
Like no, I'm not crazy. I'm not
Oh
crazy.
no, you are mad.
I
All
I
all
well
members
no,
of the
I'm not.
peerage are aware they're mad. It's just how mad they are, they may not necessarily believe.
Listen, I know we can live without our skeletons. I've replaced mine, but I'm not crazy.
I,
This
I
is
can
this is
I can prove that there is a soul. I actually have 20 pounds of it myself from criminals that were executed on death row. I just can't prove it to you because the moment other people observe, insert technobabble here, and the souls dissipate into some etheric resonance. I don't know.
also then you've apparently then admitted to 20 murders.
Oh no, you didn't murder them. You just collected their soul. You just put as part of their electric chair or lethal injection some soul collector, which is a transgression, by the way, which is one of the big things. Transgressions are what happens when your obligation or understanding of human laws get in the way of you doing research, and some of your best research requires you to ignore things like legality or morals or sanity.
Hey, you know the Stanley Milgram experiment? You know the one where they force people to be prisoners or role plays them? Let's do that again. Only this time, we're actually going to convince them that they are prisoners with mind control.
Which is something you can genuinely do. This is one of the fun things is you name a mad science branch, they have something for it. They almost always have something for it. But
So
as you mentioned,
that
they do
go
gather
go.
together into free associations. What are those?
So artificers, mad engineering,
All right.
builder. So these are the builders. These are you guys making the death rays, making the robots, computers, all that. You have the directors focusing on mad psychology.
They are
So
also the equivalent of the greasy, scary HR rep or manager in a work co-op. Because you
well, the other one.
collaborate with other mad scientists usually. That's the only way you can
Well,
get your
yeah.
experiments to work.
Well, the one thing is a sort of crackpot political theory. Like, yes, techno fascist anarcho feminism can work.
That's one of the better things is that, yes, there is the possibility to make mad politics, mad political science as an option.
The third one is the navigators. So
These,
these are mad physics.
yep,
So while it kind of can merge with construction, they're not focused primarily on just building things. They're focused on perhaps traveling or using technology in wondrous ways.
one of the running gags about them are they're sometimes compared to the effete British adventurer on the airship, the sort of person who's going on massive, jolly sci-fi adventures to hidden worlds. And there's a grain of truth in it, but they're also straight up survivalists. There's in some ways also a mixture of Bear Grylls, and they're not necessarily European.
The fourth group is the progenitors,
They recently
uh,
went through a purge.
mad biology.
So what happened was originally a good chunk of them were at least influenced by the Lemurians, or at least working with them. There was a very violent purge during the 1990s, and now there's kind of a Cold War. There's the old style, which is closer to Dr. Frankenstein, and then there's the new style, which is more your sleek bio corporation company, like the ones who are lying about recreating dire wolves, when in reality dire wolves look more like jackals, because they are. They're closer related to jackals than wolves. Sorry, people who thought we brought them back. Those aren't dire wolves.
But I can bring them back. I have a time machine.
Well, the problem with time machines are you need, I think it's called Scaphoid 6. Oh yeah, there's the equivalent of spheres. They're called axioms.
Yeah.
We'll get to
But
those.
the fifth one are the scholastics, mad philosophy. Kind of bridging a bit with the directors, but they also have these guys essentially be occultists,
They're your research
demon worship.
specialists. They're the guys that you consult if you need to know specific odd details about certain necromantic rituals in 20th, 2nd century BC Acadia. Or alternatively, if you need a mad mathematician or a mad historian. Scholastics are the mad liberal arts, but also mathematics. In fact, nowadays you're more likely to find a crazy mathematician or computer whiz kid among the scholastics than you are to find the psychotic bookworm.
So the
Also, yes,
groupings
20
are,
pounds of souls are a lot.
yes, and Lemuria has Baramins, which is sort of the same thing.
They're kind of like a lodge, because the
A-
Lemurians always kind of play themselves up as kind of the unholy love child of the Illuminati and New World Order.
And the concept behind these groups are that they're periods of scientific thinking and the people who are sort of stuck in that era. So, for
It's kind
instance,
of that, but it's also where they think human development went wrong.
yeah, so like the atomists think that, the pinnacle was the 50s sort of nuclear energy
Because
and
they
how
see a utopia. They saw that utopia free energy for all. The power of the atom is not just a devastating weapon, but it was clean energy. You could get rid of coal. You could power houses easily. You can make, rocket powered cars out of this.
it's
Atomists
only be
also tended to have a habit of siding with certain political ideologies because they often believed that humans were not capable of running themselves. Just to let you know, a lot of atomists supported a certain funny mustache man and a certain big mustache man.
which one?
Yes.
Yeah, saying
The
which one?
yeah, the Etherites are those who essentially got pissy that Einstein's general relativity took a knife. General relativity and quantum mechanics took a knife to classical physics. These are the sorts of people that are more obsessed with Jules Verne's sort of etheric space ideas, essentially. Nikola Tesla was one of those, fun fact. Also, yes, there are a couple of historical geniuses, but they only list two. Tesla, because he was kind of a nutter, and Leonardo da Vinci, who basically said that the Lemurians were lame.
Then you have the mechanists, which are mad craftsmen.
Yes and no. They see the universe and people as large biological machines. and that there is an order inherent in the universe based on these mechanics. I don't know where they said reality was wrong. I think it might have been the death of clockwork, clockpunk or steampunk
Yeah.
in favor of diesel punk.
The oracles are religious, kind of. It's like numerology.
Yeah, it's a combination of numerology occultists. These are the people that essentially said the scientific method was a mistake and rationalism was a mistake.
And the phenomenologists.
That one I don't remember too well.
It's apparently a reference to postmodernism and the
Fair
idea of
enough.
the science wars, which is sort of the fact that, like, aware that science and culture can kind of mix. So, like, the way that you see the world is shaped by your culture, and I guess these people would be saying, no, there's a single unified theory of the way the world exists, and it's divorced from culture.
So another thing that the peerage and the Lemurians like to do is remember, being a genius is a lonely thing, and you may not have any clue on how the hell you got what your insight on the world. So you don't really understand. Well, you never do, but when you don't have anything to grasp onto in terms of your breakthroughs, you tend to gibber and fall apart into insanity faster. And the Lemurians try to pick you up quickly because hey, they can indict you into saying no, your sanity is completely normal. You are 100% sane. The world is 0% crazy. While the other guys, the peerages, what they do is they give you a very brief overview on how mad science usually works, and they do these through these little pamphlets called organons. Here's an example of an organon. The word Earth indicates one entity or singularity, but Earth is not an entity, for the half of Earth seen from space cannot exist without the opposite half not seen, existing only as opposites with a plus and minus zero existence. As an entity, the opposites will cancel each other out to nothing. Teaching that Earth is an entity equates to a doomsday induced by the educators upon humanity. Earth is not a singularity, it is composed of opposites. That is the Navigator's Organon, Introductions to How Travel Works. You might know
And
it
you
as
want to?
Time Cube.
This is another way to summarize it. You know, Time Cube? Yeah, that's real now.
Well, it's not
That
necessarily
works.
real, but it works.
If you're a genius, it works. If you're not, it's the gibberish that it is.
It's a guideline to how to make teleportation devices and supercars. So, what is the nature of inspiration? And each of the major foundations comes at it from a different point of view.
So for the artificer's inspiration comes from essentially creation. Once it was perfect and worked well, but then there was a wound, and this is possibly seen as a way to uh, repair it.
That's very mage-like, don't you think?
Very much. Um,
Well, it's not that they only repair it. What they do is actually a representation of that perfect society, that perfect moment in creation.
I need some more crack to get into the right wavelength.
Honestly, that's not a bad idea. This is a book that's best done if you're slightly drugged up.
Yeah.
Directors are
Directors,
fun. They basically
and
say that no, you're not making mad scientists. You're not making mad science. You're literally bullshitting the universe. Everything you do is a lie, and the only reason it kind of works is because there are little moments in reality where the impossible happens. It's usually quantum based, but you're able to take that to the big scale. And really, mad science is just the art of telling the lie long enough so that it doesn't collapse into bullshit.
navigators,
Oh, this one's fun.
yeah, they basically see existence as just another property, and things that don't exist still possess properties.
For
So
example,
it
Darth
doesn't matter.
Vader may not be real, but you can still quantify him as an evil entity, correct?
He doesn't exist. But when you think of the idea of an evil Dark Lord, the first thing that pops in your head is Vader.
Or Sauron, either or.
So impossible things happen all the time. Genius just helps to break down the barriers.
Essentially, the irreality, non-existence, has properties, and if they have properties, that means they might have equivalent properties in real space. What a genius does is essentially make real space cry so they can use properties from non-space to work.
Progenitors see themselves as being able to do the impossible.
And that's
Uh,
because they see impossibility itself as a force of the universe. It's a constant, much like gravity or the electromagnetic force or strong and weak nuclear force.
and the scholastics see idea and concept as paramount. Inspiration is the manifestation of a more pure universe, a realm of idea as it struggles to enter this dark world. Which that's changeling, isn't it?
A little bit of changeling, a little bit of 40k with the realm of souls.
Yeah.
Also a little bit of absolute Martian Manhunter, because they also believe that the ideas that geniuses come up with in the mania that they have are little finger puppets from an intelligence from this idea of realms that seeks to make it to real space.
And by Martian Manhunter, we mean the new Absolute Universe Martian Manhunter.
Which is one
Interesting
of the
series.
only ones I like, because it's genuinely a neat idea where you have this FBI agent who has this cosmological being from another world in his head.
So yeah, your inspiration could manifest as this sort of alien entity, and it's that science is actually driven by alien entities.
Yeah, if you wanted to play Absolute Martian Manhunter with Investigator John, you could.
But now we go into the laws of mad science.
Well, no, there is the
So
Lemurian point of view, which they see that reality is a multi-layered level of existence that can exist all at once. The problem is the consensus forces only one version of it to happen, and they need to make it so that all understand that this is a lie.
the laws of mad science. The first law, the law of broken theory, is that geniuses are not scientists, and once a genius catalyzes, he will never again do science as he previously understood the practice.
You literally can't do science because you're not you're not unbiased. I mean, you never were even as a scientist, but now you're incapable of being unbiased. You will struggle to actually make replicatable examples because you're making one once in a million miracles essentially. And here's the other
Science,
fucked up thing. You can make something using completely different principles as one of your peers that does the exact same thing, and they both work exactly the same. They might even have the same faults, but you came at it from a different point of view. Like, let's say you wanted to make a Bacta tank, right? How would you do it using mad science?
nanomachines.
So here's my idea. Resonating crystals that use a certain ultraharmonic frequency that allows the cells to recover at a faster rate because it induces telomeric sequences. I
Ah.
vibrate you to health, and that will also work exactly the same. The gel is just a medium for the vibrations.
The second law is the science is science law, which is that you're not doing magic. You can't wave a wand. You
You're
have to
not a
apply it
mage.
at least to some understanding of how the world works, either as it was seen in the past, now, or who knows, in the future.
All wonders operate on at least some scientific principles. An ancient caveman flying machine that will still operate using the concept of lift. If you make
The
an ancient Egyptian laser gun, it will still operate on some law, maybe optics, maybe energy capacitance, even if it's using some really insane energy like souls or tantric sex energy. It doesn't matter. It still operates on some form of physics.
Then we have the black box law, which is that due to the nature of inspiration, you can never know how the wonders even work.
You don't
It is
really.
based on
It,
like your theories, but you can't it basically you can't replicate it. You don't know what you're doing. It just you just know it works.
It's basically you have the dangerous ability to know just enough to make the device without actually understanding what you did. It's the Jurassic Park phenomenon, where without
So,
even knowing what you did, you decided to try to patent it and sell it to other mad scientists.
so, Fishy, not reality warping, because that brings us to the mere mortal law, because regular people screw up wonders. When people who are not geniuses interact with mad science, it has the potential to damage, destroy it, or cause it to run amok. Basically, you have a little pocket of your own reality, and it shatters as soon as it interacts with reality.
It degrades when exposed to people that look at it. It's almost kind of like Schrodinger's cat, where until you open the box, you don't really know how the thing works. Can it work? But when you open the box, it always turns out, oh no, this is a bunch of gobbledygook that won't work at least the way you want.
Or more like, the cat is dead, and we know this because you put the dead cat in it.
Correct.
Then the obvious truth law. While mere mortals will screw up a wonder, there is no cosmic principle or conspiracy at work that relates to wonders or inspiration. A mere mortal can see a wonder and will still remember it.
Yep. It doesn't work like lunacy. It doesn't work like some of the things vampires can do. No, you just if you make a machine that's powered by eating children, they're gonna remember that you made a machine powered by eating children. They will remember it perfectly as you go screaming into prison.
And there are some cases where mortals, even if they don't become geniuses, they will get obsessed by it.
Because they just saw something that should not be. In fact, it's actually surprisingly common that geniuses form in the aftermath of a Havoc incident.
And that brings us to the next part, which is the catalyzing, which is the other 5 parts that are common to every World of Darkness game.
By the way, this is actually around the point for those wondering where I lost my temper with Princess the Hopeful. And a lot of it has to do with during that one's run, most of the lore that they covered had nothing to do with the World of Darkness or could really fit because it was essentially a separate realm from the World of Darkness. This, on the other hand, there's things in it that you can actually apply to it,
You could
and it
definitely add
complements better.
werewolves, vampires. You could add the God Machine into this. You could,
Oh yeah, this was
you know what?
pre-God Machine, if you're wondering.
You know what will work? Also, in addition to Promethean, deviants.
In fact, actually,
Maybe
a
we're
lot of deviants would probably be made by these guys.
yes, but onto the. So we already had the 5, I guess, clans. Now we have the 5 sort of temperaments or characters.
They are originally based on certain types of divine entities. They were also originally, by Lemurian standards, pinned to a certain planet, which indicated their movement. So
So
here's the
we
thing
have.
before we go. Catalysts, unlike the vampire clans or bloodlines, and unlike the werewolf tribes, they're not bound by this. They, in fact, actually often don't work together. It's just kind of a coincidental thing.
It's
Uh,
this is your origin story.
this is also kind of the equivalent of, you know how in Werewolf the Forsaken, your type of forms and talents are based on what phase of the moon you were born in?
Yeah, this
It's
is
similar to that.
similar. Yeah. So the first one is called Grim, Catalyst of Fury. Azurus is its nickname, the traditional planet Mars. If you don't get what this is your bash things and hit them with a giant metal stick.
Also, just to be fair to Princess the Hopeful, the version we read was pretty bad. I have to completely and repeatedly state, get the crystal version of Princess the Hopeful. It summarizes things better. It gives you ideas on how it works. It reads better. It's just better produced. It may not be a complete version, but I actually did a quick reading of it. I'm very tempted to, on some level, at least in the future, look through that one because I genuinely think it nailed the magical girl thing a lot better.
I said that is a bit of a problem with fan splats because there is a second edition to this one, but it's not from the same person, so it's unofficial, so it's all a mess.
Yeah. That's one of the problems
But
with fan splats. It just depends on what version you get. The one we got wasn't that good.
yeah,
If
but
we did
onto the
Crystal, I think
yeah,
we would have been a lot kinder.
yeah, but onto the Grim. So these are ones who break through due to some rage,
It
due
could be
to
injustice at
hate.
what their situation
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
tragedy that they experienced, or just stress, just anger at the world as you fall into this sort of scenario. The people
yeah.
who tend to be this way turn into Batman, essentially. Batman or the
Bat
Punisher.
well, Batman in one of the and potentially in one of those bad endings where he just goes kill crazy
They also tend to be the most direct of the mad
to
scientist
the point
types.
where to the
They're
point with
blunt.
their axiom that they describe is catastrophe, which is the one where you have laser guns.
So catastrophe is the force of destruction. It's not just laser guns. Death rays are the most common, or one of the most common. It could also just be something as simple as I created hyper AIDS. Why? Because destruction.
Because it's targeted to one person,
Yeah, you
Desra.
could totally make Batman as a mad scientist. Um, they also go into what training that the Grims tend to have. These are basically suggestions by the creator. I think this could also be cut down, or at least summarized a bit shorter. I do have to give some statements that I do think that you could easily cut about 10 pages of this shit so far,
Well, we're nearly an
like the
hour in, and
book.
this is we're nearly an hour in, and only 50 pages in.
I
So
like the book, but I will state that this is not great design. This can be easily cut down. I think it should be cut down. But some of the amazing concepts include sadistic vigilante, the quiet security specialist, the terror of the school board. Yes, you can be the absolute nightmare that is the homeowners association owner or the member of the PTA. Like you could be the completely horrifying and traumatizing Iron Maiden of the parent teacher alliance.
I have become Karen, destroyer of worlds.
Guardian of the Innocent, the high pressure company manager, the passionate antiquary and orator, the plague lord. You could just be like, I just want everyone. I just want to turn everyone into dinosaurs.
You could cure cancer.
I don't want to do that. I want to turn everyone into dinosaurs.
That also might apply though to the next one, the Hoffnung, which, given its traditional planet of Jupiter and its quote of "We won't have these problems when I rule the world," fits the kind of person who believes that they are the top of the food chain.
Oh yeah, I should also note that every catalyst type determines what your first derangement will be. You may not necessarily get your derangement because if you have a high enough obligation, you will not get it. But for the Grims, their first derangement is irrationality, which every one of them can be described as you have to do a resolve plus composure check or you take penalties. With irrational, you have to then do another keep it cool check that's slightly different, or you're just going to act like a complete rageaholic nightmare, like for the rest of the scene. But yeah, the Hoffnung are the ones that essentially they see something, they see some type of bright future. This would be Walt Disney when he's building Epcot. I
Yeah,
totally
because
believe that a company run society where they have to take insight on their brand loyalty and keep to the certain moralistic standards will build a better America. That's not fucking creepy at all. Their visions can be beautiful, but they can also be pretty horrifying to everyone but them.
as it says, their derangement is narcissism.
Oh yeah, they are completely insufferable. Basically,
And
if they fail their keep it cool check, they have a -3 on teamwork and a -1 die roll to social situations because they are smarmy, self-centered, delusional assholes who do not realize that they may not be right. In fact,
Then
they
I do like,
mechanically
yeah,
cannot understand the possibility of them being wrong.
the concepts. I like some of the concepts here. Post Y chromosome feminist.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Guy who's really excited about fluoride in the drinking water.
Yeah.
So reverse RFK Jr.
The virtual town planner, you could become a Hoffnung just because you played Sim City or City Skylines so much that you went insane.
I have perfected Second Life.
Also, Cold Fusion Researcher, those are always fun.
Then we have Klagan, Catalyst of Loss,
Grief.
Cassandra's. Yeah,
So, not a lot of mad. This is probably the least common type of mad scientist catalyst because usually when you experience your tragedy, because most catalysts involve some form of tragedy because it takes, at its shortest, one really fucked up event to break your brain. But usually it's over weeks, so your life and career fall apart fast. And what will usually happen is you either rail against the world because you feel wronged, which makes you become a grim, or you get very angry about the people making fun of you, and that they clearly are going behind your back and ruining your life, which will make you one of the later catalysts.
well,
It's very
I've
rare for
yeah.
someone to say, this is my fault, everything went wrong because of me.
Well, as I say, the derangement is depression, and the concepts here I think really fit that. Geneticist who made a fatal error, unwitting creator of monsters, scholar of genocide, and hollowed out social worker.
Yep. What's a
Yeah, they
post-Y chromosome feminist? You never read Y the Last Man? So this is actually a thing that you used to see in a few sci-fi stories and movies during like the 70s and 80s. And the idea is it's a scenario. You still sometimes see it. It's just not as common, and sometimes it's idealized now, where all of the men die. All of the men die either due to some form of genetic disease or some really fucked up society experiment.
so it's like, well, how you the odd thing of how are you a feminist then in a world where there are no men? How do you adapt to that society? It was an interesting comic, but
Well, it's
yeah,
also the
that's
concept of you want to bring this society too because you're a mad
yeah.
scientist. Also, the
Who's the person?
stereotypes they go through are pretty neat. I think my favorite one is actually we missed it, but the Grimm talking to the last one, which I'll explain later. But the Grimm is basically regretting that they can't see the wonder in what they create because they're just too angry to see it. Like it's I sometimes have memories of some of these things where it's almost happy. I don't really know what that's like anymore.
Yeah. So our next one is the Ned, the
Most
catalyst
common.
of banishment. Yeah,
These are the most common. They're also nicknamed worms, and their traditional planet is Saturn because they're a very dour, miserable lot.
usually beginning with a scientific breakthrough.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
literally, it's scoff at me, will you? I'll show them. I'll show them all. A very, very common motivation.
Yeah, their derangement is suspicion. They become paranoid,
They think
uh,
everyone's out to get them, to make fun of them. They came here to laugh at them.
and they are. I can hear their thoughts, and they're all looking at me. I haven't showered in days, but that's clearly not why they're all looking at me.
Also, yes, that is a very common thing geniuses do, is forget to shower. There are some geniuses who legitimately starve to death during their experiments.
Well, the experiment was to see if you can live without
Oh no,
digestion. If you,
no, no. It's like it was something as innocuous as just charting star forms from across the galaxy using a super telescope.
and then we have the Stoughton, the catalyst of curiosity.
These guys are interesting in the sense that they're probably the most horrifying type of mad scientist when they go crazy.
Well, as I say, there are rays of light even in the world of darkness. The Stoughtons have found them and want to share them with the world.
I have such sights to show you, they say as they
That's
open the box to hell.
that is not a good thing, because this is the world of darkness. There are that ray of light is not good.
No, that's the entire point. These guys are genuinely horrifying if you play them right. They are probably the scariest for me.
Let's see, fixations, their derangement, and the concepts.
They
Cryptid
will legit
hunter.
starve themselves to death. But yeah,
Yeah.
what were the concepts? Because these are pretty good.
Forgotten stargazer, cryptid hunter, bright-eyed theologian, cartographer of mysterious places.
Also, manipulative social engineer. That's a fun one. Also, keep in mind, yeah, you can be a mad priest. You can be a crazy theologian because one of the types of super science you can become via scholastics is mad religion, where you use
Listen,
the occult.
I found out the Trinity is actually 4, or sometimes 7, or 13. I don't know. It changes. It's a kaleidoscope.
It changes on the different ages. We're currently in the age of Aquarius, therefore meaning that there are five. Five is stable, but five is not the most stable. We will enter into the age of Aries, which will become the 13. That is the most unlucky. We will enter the era of darkness, which is even darker than this. You begin screaming and ranting.
Yeah, the Clay can do sound like Mr. Freeze's.
Oh yeah, the Klagan as a whole, Mr. Freeze emphasizes them the best.
Yeah. But then, obviously, we go into character creation, which, listen, if you play World of Darkness, you know what it is.
Oh, before we get, we're going to very quickly go through. One of the things I will note is that one of the things that they advise is that you don't play all the same catalyst because that doesn't usually happen anyway. Because each catalyst brings something to the table. A Grim, very blunt and to the point, will cut through the bullshit of the Visionary and force the guy that's staring off into nowhere thinking about, I don't know, how to make a better house cat to focus on the now rather than the later. The Visionary gives ideas that are very useful. Like, they are very great idea guys. They're just completely insufferable to work with. The depressed guys are the ones that make you go, hey, you know the zombie virus you created? You probably shouldn't make it because remember the last time you tried to create zombie virus 1.0? I I'm noticing it has several of the same faults as zombie virus 1.0. And we happen to be right next to one of the biggest mortal guys, one of the biggest Gilligans, one of the biggest Larrys humanly possible. Do you want that idiot to accidentally release Plague 2.0 like it happened the first time? The paranoid guys are great at spotting people trying to steal your research, and last but not least, the research guys are excellent data crunchers because you just plop them onto their project and they'll keep going until they starve to death. I kind of like that they each have a different role, which is kind of useful. And I mean that personality wise, not just in terms of what they bring to the table super science wise. Now, as for
So,
character creation, it's pretty similar. There is a couple things, though, that change. For example, your catalyst, you basically apply a genius template, and what that does is you gain an extra dot in either intelligence or wits. It depends on what type of genius you're making. Geniuses do usually want to have a high intelligence because that's how you make wonders. Speaking of which, wonders. So, during the creation process, to show that you have become a recent mad scientist, you are given 5 rolls to make your wonders. Each time you declare to make one, you then make a roll. If you succeed, you get the wonder with the faults that are inherent to it. If you fail, you try to roll again. If you fail dramatically, well, you just keep rolling. You have to make at least one wonder. And if you fail all 5 rolls, you just essentially keep rolling until you get one success.
which statistically should happen.
It should. If I had a nickel for every young genius that has only one successful wonder and it took them much longer than possible, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot,
No,
but
no,
it's
no.
weird that it happened twice.
No, you have 2.3 nickels. It works, trust me.
And
So,
as for the prelude, one of the things that they recommend is that you set up an opening narrative, like an opening one-shot chronicle. Hey, Private Penguin. Yeah, Genius is pretty good. I will say that there is something that can damn it. Only geniuses can find its bookmarks. It's not too bad now. We're only in the first fifth of the book. I like the book, but it's gonna be a fucking nightmare when we look at the wonders section.
So I think that the next thing to talk about is the concept of inspiration.
Oh yeah, this is very important to being
So
a genius.
yeah, this is
Also,
your like
this
mage or
section
your
that I'm cutting
blood.
here, just look at all this crap. I'm gonna complain about that because you can't skip it using bookmarks, but this is a step-by-step process on how to make a genius. It's a
So
pain in
here is
the ass to read, but it's useful, at least in
so
some
here is
circumstances.
here is what inspiration does. You start with 1 dot of inspiration, and more can be purchased at character creation or with experience. Inspiration determines how much
Actually, what
mage
page are you on? Because this book is a bit of a...
78.
Okay, I skipped like 10 pages. Sorry, man.
Sorry.
This
So
book is a bit of a clunker.
yeah, and actually see on page 79 with 1 dot you get stat maximum for whatever your inspiration is in is 5.
So the best way to describe inspiration is this is your equivalent to blood potency. And it's also similar to generation, actually, just really quickly, because this book is a big chunker. Um, so inspiration 1 is usually what geniuses start at, and as you continue to make wonders and grow, your inspiration will grow, which will allow you to store more mania, which allows you to make more wonders, because wonders eat mania each day to work until you dismantle them. It also determines how much mania you can use per turn, mania being, like I said, if I was going to make this splat for Chronicles of Darkness, I'd have it be fluffed as Azoth. It really works well if you want a Demiurge book. But it's similar to how vampires can spend more. And what Jabir is again, when you're talking to a normal scientist or a human and you're trying to science to them, this is your jibber jabber. This is your techno babble because your understanding of science is broken when you become a genius. And the
So
more inspiration you have, the less you can normally science.
so any attempt to explain the research or communicate ideas suffers a -1 penalty. Is that -1 dice
-1 die.
or
Yeah, the penalty isn't, you don't add a number to the d10, you subtract a die.
so so
That's a bit confusing.
if you already have shit social skills, this
Oh, you're
fucks you
fucked.
further.
You're fucked.
At inspiration 5, penalty goes to -2.
Because by that point, your understanding of normal science, you're really only using normal science to help you build your mad science at that point.
Although the benefit of inspiration is a genius never suffers penalties for unfamiliar applications of a skill. So,
Correct.
you might have trouble perhaps with your drive score if you were just only handling a motorcycle and then trying to fly a helicopter. Genius does not suffer a penalty.
They intrinsically understand on a basic level a lot of technology, yes. Your inspiration is also useful because much like blood potency and much like gnosis, it also gives you resistances if a vampire or a mage attacks you only using one attribute as your save. You can use your inspiration to add to the roll. Like let's say I am Dr. Schmeinbrücken and I have an inspiration of 4. Let's say Dracula comes and tries to fuck me over using what discipline that only attacks my wits or something, right? I can use my inspiration of 4 to aid my wits of 3 to have 7 dice to resist Dracula. Conversely, my death ray, Dracula can resist up to his blood potency. It's an equivalent exchange, essentially.
I think that though brings us to what mania is, and that's on page 81.
Yep, because
Because it's
there's the Unmeta, the Brilliant Madness. Basically, what happens is if you try to use too much mania, you burn your brain out and you kind of go nuts. Reality stop. No, reality makes sense to you, but the world is wrong. Reality is wrong. They're wrong. The world is clearly a cube. How could they think it's a sphere, silly people? And of course there are reptilians that live at the center of the earth. I fought one, I killed one, and it disappeared before I could show everyone. I'm not even kidding. That's how an Unmeta works, and they usually at
yeah.
that point, If you're part of the peerage, you're gonna join the Lemurians because they don't accept those crazy fuckers. But yeah, Mania. Sorry about that.
So you can use Mania to enhance mental attributes. Every point you spend gives +1 to any one mental attribute for 1 turn.
It's really funny because they don't reference Jimmy Neutron, but this is your Brain Blast ability.
Oh, yeah.
It's also
Then
similar to how vampires can spend Vitae to improve a stat.
yeah. Then you have the ability to power mundane technology. So you just manipulate anything for a certain period of time with
Well,
one
no, in
point.
fairness, when you do that, you potentially could destroy the device.
Same thing with enhancing the technology.
But it does
The-
allow you to basically, as a cool party trick, like your phone is dead or someone's phone is dead, you could just be like, "Yo, watch this," and then you just put Mania into it. It's fixed now.
You may have fried some of the circuits and now the battery's at 50% permanently, but it works. Use this to activate wonders, understand technology, break down technology, and the ways you gain it back are quite interesting. You can gain it by contemplation.
Oh
You
yeah,
regain 1 point automatically.
you gain
Um,
one a day when you wake up, and you gain a bit by thinking or doing research.
yeah. But this is the other one. If the genius has an unwilling person captured and restrained, he can regain a number of mania equal to his inspiration plus presence, requiring at least 30 seconds of ranting, and it can only be done once per day.
You can totally do a mad scientist monologue, and Squirrel Killer and I last night in a fit of mania ourselves just came up with some amazing ones. Also, yeah, if you're curious, this is Genius to Transgression first edition. I made a point to pick this one specifically because the guy who wrote this later on went to write Vampire the Masquerade Night Roads. It's rough, but I genuinely think with a good editor, you could totally fluff this as a Demiurge book. It's really good.
And
And
then if
as for
you are on,
second edition, that one's rougher because it's a completely different writer who is just a fan. I'm not trying to crap on you, person who wrote second edition version of Genius. It's just I'm familiar with this one. This one I know is good, and I didn't want to make the mistake I did with Princess the Hopeful, where I found the big version of it that spammed me with metaplot. Crystal version of that, it just gets into it better. It gets into your archetypes better. Get Crystal version of Princess the Hopeful. I will recommend it every time.
so there is one other way to regain mania, and this is only from an Armada. Destroy an object of value that the genius disagrees with, such as an ancient scroll containing unlawful secret techniques, or smashing a laptop that was said to broadcast indiscretions of the Armada's group.
This is mostly a Lemurian tactic. It's why you have to make an Armada check, I believe, if you
It's called,
are
yeah,
sane.
it's called editing. You know, just editing.
You can also
And
recover mania from. Okay, so there are these things called manes and beholden. The beholden is best described as, "Yes, master. Okay, Igor, it's time. It's 5:30. You know what that means. Yes, I shall get the flattening device, my lord." And manes are creations, essentially spirits of mania. This can range from something as simple as an unbound gremlin, like let's say your device explodes and the spirit pops out as a gremlin. That could be an example. To a faulty clone that is like Bizarro, to a snake person, to a super soldier project that you found under Antarctica, or a dinosaur that you found in the Hollow Earth.
but then we have the morality segment of the game, the transgression. You start at for obligation.
Much
This is
like
your sense
Vampire, you
of,
usually
yeah.
start at 7 because not. Let's be fair. Most people aren't very virtuous. They're just average guys and gals trying to make it in this world. You're not going to have the highest of moralities, especially after you make your breakthrough. Because moralities, guidelines, if I have to follow that, how can I possibly invent the device that allows me to make engram copies of everyone that I know and love so that we can defeat immortality? I know that it only has a 5% chance of working, and there's a 10% chance that their brains fry permanently, but it's just something we need to do.
But I do like this though. You can buy it down to 5 at character creation to gain 5 experience per lost dot.
You can get up to 10, which is lovely. And what obligation does is, so this is something I did like from the old World of Darkness. The higher your obligation or humanity equivalent, the more dice you have to survive your moral degradation. Once you start falling, you fall hard and you fall fast.
But yeah, that potential 10 experience points is tempting.
It's very useful. And on top of that, you technically only lose 1 die to save your morality. And on top of that, you're not punished for being at 5 obligation. The lower your obligation, the worse your social rolls are because having to deal with these pathetic little ants. Why should I
These
have
in,
to?
these inferiors, these subhumans. But yeah, considering that experience cost,
By the way, be careful. One of the benefits you can get, one of your traits you can get, is called technomancers. So you can actually effectively steal the mage's abilities. Like you could steal,
mm,
like you can't awaken, but what you can do is drain them of their magic essentially. So you could be like, no one mocks me, mage, and then he drains all your magic and puts it into I don't know, like the sphere of resonant agony and just blasts it back into them so they only know pain.
yeah. There are then, in terms of like other resources, in addition to just the regular resources, you have orphans, which are experiments or mains that were created from a genius that died or abandoned it,
Because sometimes you
which can
just can't afford to hold on to it, so you just give up on it.
which can sort of can render it feral as it seeks mania, but instead you can adopt one. And this gives you a useful ally, essentially a wonder, but obviously you do have to feed it.
And on top of that, you can't drain mania from it back. Oh, you're
You've got
joking,
your
but comically big battery. One of the things I like about Genies the Transgression is they really highlight that one of the aspects when you create your character is you also determine the style of what your experiments and devices look like. So you can go nuts with it. If you want to go full Hellraiser with your designs or Event Horizon, you could go hardcore gothic with spikes that hurt your eyes. Or you can go Golden Age Art Deco future retro. Or you can go gritty retro punk from the 70s. Or you can go really, really annoyingly Silicon Valley, where everything is
it,
rounded, white, and plastic. Oh, also something
yeah,
that you did ignore is I do have to point out resources are a thing, but the way resources work for Genius is very different because technically you need to determine where your resources come from. It's not just your living wages, it's actually the money you can put into experiments. And some of the ways you can do this is through entrepreneurship, where you actually take your wonders and try to make a mundane version of it to sell on the market because that's one of the things you can do. One of the very common mad scientist routes is to just go full Kickstart scammer or Silicon Valley startup. You can get grant money from universities. You can mooch off your family, or you can go into the private sector like the Ghostbusters, or you could just rob a bank with a robot. But there's drawbacks to this because you do have to at least try to fulfill things. Like if you have an entrepreneurial ship, you do need to make a new product or demonstrate that the product works. You have to chart your sales. But one of the things that this book also points out that I'm glad they do is the whole point of this is to make mad scientist creations. Don't overly punish the player with checking their wealth. Because no one wants to just be a broke frickin' genius who can't make a death ray to, I don't know, threaten a bank or to kill Batman with it. That's not fun. Another one you can get is assembly line, which allows you to make more wonders at once. Beholden are your Igors, which is actually one of their nicknames. They're basically normal people that you kind of break their brains when you show them man-made horrors beyond their comprehension.
Like the advantage of a beholden is that they can assist with the creation of wonders without causing havoc. Hence, one rumored origin of the term "gentlemen, behold."
I'm actually glad they did reference Dr. Weird there. I'm just now envisioning the mad scientist just, behold, corn! And it's just slightly faster growing corn.
Actually, this would explain the Aqua Teen Hunger Force. They're orphans.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much are. If you wanted to, you could totally do an Aqua Teen Hunger Force parody with this game.
Actually, I would do the Promethean.
So one of the things I will note, and this is something you can complain about with your virtues. So the beholden, the way they work is there are 3 dots to indicate what level they are. You can use 1 dot to indicate how many you have, 1 dot to indicate how skilled they are at lab work, and last but not least, how good are they at surviving against Brock Samson? Because you're not killing Brock Samson. It's just how long they last before he kills them.
Yeah, that's usually how it works.
There is also the ability to just drain knowledge from people. You can become a calculus vampire. Manes, or basically things made of not reality, can do this for free. You pick it up for free.
Yeah, and you've got other things. You have generators that will generate mania.
This is
The
something
ability
you
to
can
dumpster
make, but
dive.
you usually find.
You can leech off of other people's mania. You've got your laboratory statistics.
So labs are also something that you will dump quite a few resources into. Be-
Hence why you probably want those dots from the lowered obligation, because
you can
that
use
gives
the
you a good
experience for
starting
that.
setup.
What it also does is it encourages collaboratives. Basically, one of the things you can do once you make a group of geniuses are you can actually pull together your dots to essentially establish things. Like one of you can cover the rental space of the laboratory, one of you can cover for the resources for it, the lab equipment, and the other can do security, for example. It's to kind of help you set up why you collaborate with people that you may not necessarily like. Because to make your experiments, you do need many bodies, and as a starting genius, that's kind of hard to get. As for
But I
what
think that
mains are, again, these are not natural born human beings. Some examples include automatons, clones, or someone born in another dimension, because there's these things called bardos, which are failed reflections of what could have been.
little pocket dimensions.
Uh, you could be a caveman from the Hollow Earth. You could be a Nazi super soldier clone from Antarctica who has rejected the mind programming. You could be a Martian. But either way, you can be one of these, and they work differently. They work more like vampires. You have to drain mania to survive, and on top of that, what level of main you are determines how humanoid you look. So if you wanted to, you could be a complete atrocity. You can make people's eyes bleed the moment they look at you. Oh yeah, Genius was Deviant before Deviant. I think this is perfect if you wanted to make a Demiurge splat for Deviant and Promethean. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good for a first draft. The only thing it's missing, like I mentioned, if it had bookmarks, because let me tell you, when we get into Wonders, this is gonna suck. This is gonna suck. But if it had bookmarks, this would be a really great splat, especially if you got an editor to clean it up. Oh, also,
So
Science Hero is an ability you can pick up. It's really nice because it allows you to explain the thing to the people, and they'll understand what you mean.
3 dots though, so pricey.
It's useful though,
Yeah.
especially if you're playing like a director whose whole thing is to play the, you know, the horrifying HR director. For those of you who are coming, they're like the HR director or the games lead project. They're the people that tend to run things, because that's one of the things I've noticed about geniuses. You could totally play them like a video game or honestly a TRPG, you know, community group that's working on a project. It works really well. It works really well, mainly because I think it allows you to do things like Ghostbusters.
So, but does that mean Todd Howard's a genius?
You could. You could make Todd Howard a genius. It just worked.
No, that ex
No, that's
that ex
why. That's why Fallout
that ex
76. Like he played it, and it was the greatest game he ever saw.
well, no, that explains why Bethesda's games are always glitchy.
Well, yeah, because every wonder has a fault. Sometimes multiple faults.
The Gamebryo engine is a creation of a genius.
I love the idea that the games work perfectly whenever Todd plays them. Like they're the greatest games that are ever made, and then the moment they're given to anyone, it just melts into a glitchy pile of shit that fucking crashes after 10 minutes. God, that would be frustrating. I would be horrified and just bitter with life if everything I made was like that. He's an Igor with super social.
But
His
who's
employees
his?
are, yeah. Yeah, let's be fair. The poor code monkeys that are basically treated like crap and thrown into the wood chipper are the geniuses there.
Yeah.
So,
So next up is detail on the various foundations and all that. We
so
did
I
pretty
had
much
problems
go over
with
that
Princess doing
previously.
this, and this I feel like could be cut. Maybe the stuff earlier could be cut, or you really summarize it. This is more for if you really want information about the different types. They also explained that when you're doing mad science, your favorite axioms, basically the ones that allow that you have an intrinsic knowledge of, one of them is based on your trauma. One of them is one you pick, and one of them is usually from a foundation or from one of the Lemurians. And you have to actually keep up a subscription to Mad Science Monthly in order to keep up on research. You basically have a research paper. In exchange, you're also supposed to contribute, which is the equivalent of just occasionally burning a mania point to, you know, write little articles in the paper yourself. Is essentially you put in what you get back.
So
It's
I
kind of
think
neat.
that
I kind of like this.
yeah, we can skip over to page
Well, we can, but
136.
just I'll very quickly sum them up. The artificers, they came about actually from American tinkerers who basically said the Lemurians were the big lame, and they're very much the poor guys. They work in third world countries. A lot of zip guns are made by these dudes. It's kind of like Q from 007. It's kind of Q from James Bond. If he was making guns out of garbage, like, yeah, your watch laser, that's a $2 plastic watch I found from a dumpster that I then put like a little laser light from a pen on it. Just very short summaries on these. The direction, these are the people that basically gathered the free thinkers together to combat the Lemurians. They're the most like them in terms of attitude. They're the most old boys club of the lot. Um, they have changed somewhat, but these are the money men. These are the delusional CEOs you have to deal with. These are the guys who go, "Oh, but I want the ability to also not just have magic but a classless system," and you just want to strangle them. The navigators are essentially former explorers turned gimps. They're basically your drivers. These are your chauffeurs. They've recently gotten under from that, but basically they were treated like crap until recently. The progenitors were legitimately a fifth element agent of the Lemurians that had to be purged. The old type are more like Dr. Frankenstein. The new types are like the people who are pretending to reinvent the dire wolves. And last but not least, the scholastics. Basically, they're all over the place. Some of them are some of them are mad like philosophers. Some of them historians. A lot of them recently have become mathematicians and code monkeys. They're also the oldest of the traditions, being around since 10th century Arabia. There we go. I just, really quick. Just
Yeah, but page 136 has our wonders and axioms.
And if you're wondering, you can be a rogue. Basically, you're not part of the peerage directly. You're not part of the foundations. You can work with them, or you can work with Lemuria. You tend to be a little crazier because you're not as tied to. Basically, what the axioms do are they provide knots of semi-sanity to your ideas because they allow you to fixate on a certain concept.
You mean the axioms or the foundations?
Axioms. The
Okay.
foundations profess axioms. They basically teach you how to do the things with super science. And what that allows you to do is to focus your psychosis on the super science. It's a little more sane and it works more often. It
Yeah.
allows you to focus your psychosis. That's what
So
the axioms do.
your wonders you get to create based on these axioms, and as we went over before, there's various different means to improve upon it using beholden, using um,
You can cut parts out by
like
using
yeah,
mundane parts, but that usually makes them work less effectively.
yeah. You can
Um,
use larvae.
you can compartmentalize it. Like, let's say you want to build an airship. Have the artificer build the airship body. Have like the grim weaponsmith build the laser gun on it, and have, say, the navigator design the computer systems that allows you to control and direct its motion. And if you want, you can add, like, the Scholastic finds a way to make it so that demons can't possess the ship. Or they do the
and
coding to give it a sentient AI butler.
and another component, a larvae.
Oh yeah, the best way to
Let,
describe larvae are, so what's the ship powered
it's like,
by? Proprietary parts.
I may have used a few unorthodox parts. An orphan?
An
What?
orphan.
Did you say an orphan?
It
You
wasn't.
little
It wasn't
orphan
a
boy?
total orphan. I only had to use part of one. They're called
So,
that because they're you're committing a transgression. You're basically throwing away your morality to use these parts.
could be
It's
a living
usually
thing,
body
could
parts,
be
but not
something
always.
else.
And the reason larvae are useful are what they allow you to do. All wonders have a mechanical fault with them. They always do. The only ones that don't usually cost twice as much mana, mania to fix. What larvae do is they allow you to. I think it's either to ignore a fault, or no, it's not to ignore a fault. All of them cost mania. All of them cost mania. You bind mania. Like, let's say I make a level 2 robot, right? I have to put 2 bits of my mania into it. If I have it powered by the soul of an orphan, I only got to put 1 in there. And if I went a little crazy because of that, I don't have to put any into it. It's just mine now. Like, if I made like the greatest pizza oven ever, because let's say I made the convection oven currents out of rat brains and the last egg of an extinct species of bird. I mean, I don't have to put magic into it. It just makes perfect pizza every time. I mean, except if you put it on broil, then it might explode. But that's how larvae work. And larvae are very useful. There's a big trade in a big thieving industry around it. People try to steal larvae when they get their hands on them. People also try to negotiate with Lemuria because Lemuria morals, what are those? What are those? But yeah, we're in the part of the book where things get complicated.
They give us also like variables on
Well,
sort
first
of
off, you
how it
got
can
to
be
figure out,
constructed.
how does your device work? If it involves computers, you're going to need to use computers. Mind control ray always uses academics. If it's a mechanical device, you're going to use craft. If at any point you need to have parts of it made out of the flesh of a person or a rat brain or, anything organic, medicine. If you're dealing with dead bodies, it's going to always be a cult. And science is just, in general, something you need, especially if you're making death rays.
Yeah. And so at the end, the total roll is this: inspiration plus your attribute plus your skill plus your laboratory equipment plus your beholden ability minus your wonder rank.
Yep.
And if it's a dramatic failure, wonder becomes an orphan. If it's a failure, you roll again, and it either becomes an orphan if it's a dramatic failure. If it's then another failure,
You need a part that you don't have.
you need another part. Success or exceptional success, which is you fail to construct it, but you can do it again. Success, which, if I recall, for Chronicles of Darkness games, any roll of an 8 plus.
Yeah, in Chronicles of Darkness, you just need one. You only
An
need one,
exceptional
except if it requires more than one, which is usually for very hard tasks.
an exceptional is getting a 10.
Yep, and
So
all devices have a fault because it's not really part of our reality, and there's always something unforeseen with its design that you just miss. A
yeah,
success,
so
you just got to take the fault. With exceptional success, you get to pick which fault between two. I use the newborn to power the oven that makes things uncook.
oh, that's ironic.
You
But
know,
yeah,
a running shitpost concept for a genius character you could totally do is I've referenced Pizza Tower once or twice in chat. You could basically make your character essentially the fake version of Peppino Spaghetti as your genius, who's trying to learn how to make the best pizza. It's just since he runs on bizarro logic and is even more insane now, his understanding of pizza includes things like putting dirty money and wood chips into the pizza.
it's for the flavoring. But in addition, you have other effects like, is it collapsible? Does it
Oh
have a
yeah,
charge up
before we do,
time?
missing ingredients. So here's the thing: geniuses, the way they work is they're always assumed if you have lab space, you always got the stuff to make it, right? If you fail and then fail again, you're missing something really important, like the last tub of whale butter that was ever made, or an Archaeopteryx egg, or Israeli mind control chips from MK Ultra experiment test series number 5. You'll need to find them again, because otherwise you're not going to actually be able to make any wonders that use that field. Like, let's say you're a mad biologist and you want to create an actual turducken. 1/3 chicken, 1/3 turkey, 1/3 duck. You're gonna need to find new rare duck eggs for this to work. And you're not going to be able to use medicine, or like, let's say you run out, you're not going to be able to make anything else biologically. Like your dog man idea, sorry buddy, you gotta get the duck eggs. I'm just pointing out that's something you do need to know, and often this is actually the start of a very wild ride to get the ingredients, or making a deal with the Lemurians, because again, they have the money, they can get you what you want, but why play against them fairly? They're assholes.
So, as we said, you can have various sort of traits, I guess, to your wonders, such as it being grafted, which could be claws, mechanical arm, and other ones such as having something in pill form,
Yep.
having it have limited uses, having it be normal looking, the size of the weapon or the wonder, and so forth. But
Sometimes peculiar requirements. Basically, you can make making the device easier if you set certain circumstances, or it's less likely to cause havoc if you have certain protocols in place. Like, let's say you want your death ray to have a charge time of a minute. That makes it easier in the event some like let's say let's use Dexter's lab as an example. Let's say your idiot sister comes in and goes, "Oh, what does this button do?" That gives you a little more time to prevent it from, I don't know, accidentally blowing up town hall. Or
yeah,
alternatively, it makes it easier because the requirements are, well, less strict.
but one important part of a wonder is what does it actually do? And that's where the axioms come in.
By the way, here are the sizes for each things that are very useful to know. Ah, boy, the axioms. So again, this is the part of the book I think is at its worst because there's no easy reference guide to go back to.
They're kind of like the magic spheres from Mage.
They're like the spheres from Mage. There's equivalents to them in Mage, like Apocalypse, which I hate the name of. In fact, actually, they referenced that the original names for these were in French, and I liked them more. I liked them more than when they were in French. I'm sorry, I just do. By the way, if
But it's
you're
crazy
wondering
because
why
they're
it's
British.
in Greek, it's because the British geniuses did not want to use French. They got into a little war over that.
So, Apocalypse, the axiom of discovery, using for communications, scanners, analyzers. So these can be things that could allow you to communicate across vast distances.
Or through time, you can make a time phone.
Yeah, time, reality.
You can make a clown
Uh,
detector. In the event of clowns, you can detect where all they are in a 5 mile
and
radius.
yeah, and they give you a bunch of options that go down into what these do and the effects.
Also,
So, for
the
instance,
modifiers for how hard it is to do a thing. I forget. I think the core modifier determines how many extra dice you need for success. That's another section that this book has that I
correct.
have issues with. It's not the cleanest in explaining why a thing does what it does.
So, for instance, if you put a dot from Apocalypse to have the device reveal data, and of course, as you get higher and higher ranks, it's much more power, and going down to the specific effects of what happens if it's a success or a failure.
It also
This is
allows you
kind
to
of like
make devices that have auspex, essentially.
this is kind of like with Mage, where it's much more freeform, but now it's more constrained.
This is basically to give you examples so that the storyteller doesn't have some power gaming asshole try to go, well, you don't understand. I can totally use Force 1 to kill people but just by looking at them, by doing micro pushes on their blood vessels. Like, this allows you as a storyteller to just say, no, Dave, shut up. You want to make a mind control hat, you're going to need at least I forget the name for the mind control sphere. The control sphere. You're gonna need at least
Probably like
control sphere 3.
yeah, like level 2, you could do direct scanning. Level 3 is spatial analysis. So that's what the size of it would be. Uh, by dots 4, though, you're now into the probability of what this could be.
This allows you to be the modern Hollywood smart guy who allows you to see all possibilities and probabilities, except for the one that always happens in the film.
And level 5 is just you can reveal the truth. It's a magic 8 ball that actually works.
I'm envisioning no, I'm envisioning revealed truth is just okay. Imagine the Ark of the Covenant, but it's disguised as a magic 8 ball. You basically make a magic 8 ball that if anyone but a genius or a beholden uses, it just destroys their head. Like they go out like scanners or like the Nazis from Raiders of the Lost
I think
Ark.
you'd have to add destruction into that as well,
Oh
or
no, it's just
protection.
the knowledge is too much, so their brains
Uh,
explode.
it can see into the past and the future. To see 1 billion years is 7 successes.
It's useful though.
Oh, that yeah.
Oh
And
no,
variable, yeah.
imagine the amount of fraud you can commit by basically betting when you shouldn't.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a great way to make money.
Yeah, if you can make an Apocalypse 5 device, you could totally just do what Biff from Back to the Future did.
Uh, and they provide variables such as it needing to be a landline that it needs to be plugged in.
Variables essentially they are things and methods that you need to bind your device to. It also can determine how difficult and how many successes you need to make the thing.
Like a one medium communicator. It only transmits data as like audio, pictures, text, or video. And that gives you a bonus. It's easier to use. but at the same time, it's very limiting. The next section, though, is automata,
Oh, this is one of my
action
favorites. I
independent.
love my robots, and this is actually where this is why I genuinely think that this is perfect for Demiurge, because one of the things you will also see when we cover faults for automata are they act an awful lot like Prometheans when they go rogue.
Yeah.
They
So
act
yeah,
very much like if they're affected by the tin variant of alchemical process.
these are your robots or your zombies or whatever affected by
They're
your
not always robots. Sometimes they're
yeah,
flesh puppets. Sometimes
yeah,
they're an alien that you made with the power of your
affected
mind.
by like your level of craft skill. So you could with level 1 crafts make objects out of stone, level 5 electronic computers.
I mean, if you wanted to, you could just make golems. You could just make traditional golems with this. They don't have to be
Le-
robots.
level 4 is where you get human intelligence. Level 5 is where you get your fucking AI.
Also, if you're wondering, you can use automata as the equivalent of beholden, but unless they're rank 4 or smarter, they are very frickin' stupid. They are very stupid, and you need anywhere between 2 to 3 to get the equivalent of just one simple grunt. Still useful
Then we
though.
ha- then we have Epicrato, the axiom of control. This is your mind control, but also forces.
It's similar to Force Sphere, yeah. Also, yeah, these are a lot of variables. Automata is a section that man,
Well, yeah.
I'm very tempted to just dig through right now, but for the sake of timing I can't, which is very unfortunate.
So you're able to control objects, control minds.
Most directors want this one. Directors
Yeah.
and occasionally mad philosophers, especially if they're of the political type. They mind control is very, very fun. And it's not just necessarily a mind control ray. It could just be something as simple as artificial pheromones that make people trust you more.
By level 4, you're already controlling crowds and probability. They outright have like a political domination.
I do like that you can legitimately control how reality will occur.
Oh, and you can control the weather.
Oh yeah, if you want to make a weather machine, you will use the control axiom for it.
I I like there are degrees of precipitation, degrees of wind, uh,
Oh, you
and
know what?
at
One of the
level
funniest things about Epicratos is, you could totally use it to make the ultimate stock machine predictor.
and yes, and then at level 5, you can just control somebody's identity and just replace whatever you want out of it.
Oh yeah, you can genuinely just replace everyone's state of being in existence. People are now things now.
Then the
By the
next
way,
one
these are
is the
only the first 5 levels. I think you can go higher, but it would require
maybe, but
talking with the storyteller.
yeah. Then you have the Exelixir, the axiom of restorations. These are repairing, improvement, medicine, but also just making things better through like upgrades. So at level 1, you can just heal things. Level 2, you now have the ability to upgrade and start making exo rigs.
By the way, at just level 1, you can legitimately invent the cure for the common cold.
They'll only work for you.
And now it can work for others, but they have to not be aware of how it works. And there might be failures though.
Yeah. Uh, I think at level 5, you can just resurrect yourself.
Also, straight up, life support. You use X Elixir if you want to recreate Darth Vader. You use it, and I believe Automata there's another one that you can use. But you could basically, if you wanted to, like let's say you have a favorite goon that is about to die, you can just turn him into Darth Vader or
Yeah.
General
And then you
Grievous.
have and then you have catastrophe, which is
Your death
your
rays,
destruction.
super
Death
viruses,
rays.
infinite
Yeah.
ammo machine guns,
Dart guns, all kinds of stuff.
super poisons.
Actually, at level 1, it's agonizers, voltic stunners, energy rays. Level 2 is where you get your ray guns.
Also, ultra sharp swords, because yeah, you can totally make a lightsaber with the catastrophe ability.
Level 4 is where you get your atomic fire, and you just have city destroyers and monster busters at level 5. So if you want to kill Godzilla, you just need 5 dots into this.
Yep. As for some of the variables you can include things like auto fire, bleeding, blinding. There's a lot. Catastrophe is a very direct axiom, but it's a really fun one. If you
Oh no, this extra dimensional attack. It requires Scafy 4, but it strikes the targets in other realities as well.
Oh yeah, like let's say you're dealing with Kang the Conqueror, you can use that to just destroy all possible examples of Kang the Conqueror. This is how you kill multiversal threats.
Then you have next axiom is metatropy,
By the way, again,
transformation.
I have to complain that there's no bookmarks because you know how hard it is to actually get through all these.
Yeah.
It's pretty
So
bad.
while Elixir was about repairing and upgrading, this is about transforming, turning something from one thing to another.
I love the quote, which is a reference to the metamorphosis.
Well, it's not just a reference, it is a quote of the Metamorphosis.
Was this pre-God Machine? Yeah, this was pre-Demon. This was pretty early
Yeah,
on. I think this was made before Demon, yeah.
probably.
No,
Because
no, it
Demon
was.
was.
I'm pretty sure it
Because
was.
God Machine was when I think they also did a new edition change. But Metatropy 1, change your appearance. These are largely illusionary, but you could turn somebody into a wolfman, covering him with fur and giving him non-functional fangs, but enhancing the target will require elixir or more advanced applications. So this is also with the mage where it's like you want to mix the spheres.
They do highlight that depending on what type of wonder you want to make. Here's how making a wonder works, because these are your spheres. When you make a wonder, when you make your mad scientist invention, let's say you're going hardcore Willy Wonka and you want to make an everlasting gobstopper, right? What you would probably want to use includes a form of Exelisi, probably something at least a couple of ranks of that. Um, Possibly Metatropi to keep its appearance. So it's always eternally gobstoppery. Or alternatively, if you want to make the three-course meal gum, you would have to use Metatropi because it changes the quality of the gum through each stage, and then you would need another sphere to kind of keep things together.
Yeah.
Or
Level
let's
4,
say you want to make a soda bottle, like a type of soda that allows you to lift, like fizzy drinks that make you lift. You would probably want at least a rank of Scaffoy.
yeah. So like 4 dots allows you to change shape entirely.
Oh yeah, you can
You
do
you
what the
want
Zamichi do as a as a genius, and it's
well
pretty neat.
no, you want to make yourself a giant robot that can also change its size. This is what you do.
Also, Metatropi rank 3. Yeah, if you want to be Rita Repulsa who screams, "Make my monster grow," here you go. Make my monster grow.
And then level 5 is irrational transformations. Examples is a lesser levels of the ability, a genius might turn a person into stone or into smoke. Now you can do that, and the person remains conscious and mobile.
Oh yeah, if you decide one day to just say, I being a human's lame, I'm just gonna turn into a giant caterpillar. This is what you use.
Then you have prostasia, the axiom of protection.
This is if you want to
So
make an
that
Iron Man suit or a force field or anything that can defend you.
yeah,
Something as simple as a mathematical glyph of warding against demon would count as a prostasia effect.
and anti-scanning and anti-teleport fields.
Also, they give you an example of what type of armor. Like, let's say you're just making a basic power armor. This is what level of armor and what type of soak you'd have.
Yeah, I realized there aren't
And
dots
durability.
showing different things. You could just at level 1, you just get level 3 of armor.
I mean,
But if you
because you're
want to
super science. It's super science
but
armor.
you combine that with, let's say, again, that weapon that allows you to kill a target in every dimension.
Oh yeah, Prostasia. You would probably want Prostasia to bypass armor because I believe it also you use Prostasia to bypass defenses.
Yeah.
Also, if you're wondering if you want to make an armored supercar, Scaphoy one for a supercar, and then Prostasia whatever level you would want. And if you want to give it other functions, like it allows you to shrink so that you can sneak in through the sewers, you'd want Metatropi. And if you want to give it like heat ray machine guns, you probably want to give it something like Catastrophe 2.
Yeah.
So if you want to
Then we
make
co-
like the ultimate speed racer car, you totally can,
then we have Scaphoy, the
which is
action
your
of travel.
transportation. I know this one by heart mainly just because this is the one you use if you want to have your Thunderbird's Argo vehicle or like your Voltron robots or Megazords or whatever because they're movement.
But it's movement in any direction and any dimension.
Well, technically, the first level is just you made a supercar. You made a
Well, no, the
supercar.
first the first level is you can travel in 2 dimensions.
Yep.
Second is travel in air or beneath the earth or the sea. So if you already want to make a submarine, you just know how to make it at the 2 levels of this.
Yep. If you want to make a supercar, you only need one rank. It's kind of amazing, and
Level
and your
3,
speed
yeah.
is based on your inspiration times miles per hour.
Yeah. Level 3 is fast flying machines.
This
Level
would be your
4
airplanes.
is your straight up interdimensional and fast and light technology.
Although the teleporters require a certain number of successes.
And then level 5 is just traveling through time.
Yeah, if you want to make a DeLorean, you'd need a Scaffoy 5 car.
That's it. That's all you need.
hmm You don't really need
then
anything else but that.
then we come to the fault. And the faults are distinct based on the axiom, although always the number 10 option. And one thing I realized, this could use spacing because this
Oh yeah,
looks like a mess.
again, this is a formatting problem. If you gave it to a competent editor, what I would love to see, and I would love to see someone I would love to see someone try to get permission for it. I want to see someone take this 1.0, keep pretty much most of it as is, except for anything that requires it to get into Chronicles of Darkness 2.0, overhauling, and then just have a really good editor go through this and just refine what's there because again, I think this one really slots in well with World of Darkness. And on top of that, it did an excellent job in selling what it's like early on. Even though it is completely replaceable with Mage. It is absolutely replaceable with Mage, Deviant, and Prometheans. And Demon to a lesser extent. I don't know, it fills a certain niche.
It certainly does.
But as for how
So,
faults work, so it's based on, as you mentioned, the axioms.
like for instance, like for Metatropi.
Oh, okay.
Um,
We're going.
so,
I want to cover automata first because
oh yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's go for Automata.
again, this is the one that I think really proves that in a way it's more like proto Prometheans than you think.
So we've got the Wonder having derangements, having just physical physical shakiness.
But Fault 4, it radiates a
Yep.
sense of wrongness that offends all living beings. Mortals grow edgy and irritable around them, and animals act fearful and aggressive. What does that sound like?
Frankenstein.
Sounds like a disquiet scenario. Also, 5, it emits low level radiation that damages
Oh.
the world around it, much like disquiet.
Oh shit.
Now, do you understand why I think this is a perfect Demiurge splat?
Also, this Wonder is highly susceptible to mental influence.
Which it is.
That's
Requires living fuel.
um.
Sorry, I just
Actually, let's
wanted to
let
show
let's
those.
go as an example. The classic catastrophe, such as it requiring more mania to use. Backlash is causing 1 level of health of bashing every time the user uses it. Poorly mounted, infected with a particular pseudo intelligence. So it actually could resist um, using uh, your use of it.
That actually reminds me, if you've ever watched Star Trek, there are a couple of scenarios where they have run into intelligent guided weapons that actually have an AI on them. And one of the neater ones was they actually talk at the AI logic machine to try to get it to stop its mission of blowing up a planet, and they were able to
What was
successfully
that?
do so.
What
I
was the?
think
Yeah, I
that
know.
was in Voyager, if I recall.
No, I think that was in the
It was also in the original show,
past.
but I think Voyager did a similar version of it.
Well, like half of early Star Trek villains was either psychic aliens or robots.
I mean, robots
You
are
know,
always a
things that
great.
didn't require
Robots are only as bad as
things
the
that didn't
creators who make them.
the things that didn't require a lot of prosthetics.
Oh yeah, human-like
But
androids are very useful for that.
yeah, but these every one of them has the potential to only function in special conditions, and these are as follows: it must be in direct sunlight, not in direct sunlight, only when not in a regular nitrogen oxygen atmosphere, only when the temperature exceeds 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So this proves that the author is an American.
Yep.
Uh, Only when the temperature is less than negative 32 degrees Fahrenheit, which I believe is that freezing?
Oh yeah, negative 32 degrees Fahrenheit is actually way below freezing.
Our non Fahrenheit users help us.
So 32 normal is 0 degrees C. I think this would take it to something like, oh sheesh.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, probably about at least negative 20 degrees C.
Ooh,
I know 40 degrees
yeah.
C is like 100, so yeah, it's something like negative 20 to 25.
Then we have only when on natural
Oh,
Earth,
you forgot my
only when
favorite. You have to plug it into an electrical outlet.
outlet,
No,
only
no,
when
think
away
about it like
from.
this. Imagine you
Yeah.
made a free energy dynamo, but to power it, you need to plug it into like a wall outlet.
Oh,
Like I finally solved it. The free energy scenario using temporal resonance, using the powers of scaffoy and catastrophe because it uses ray science particulars to get it from the sun.
and somebody
Sir.
unplugs the outlet.
No, no, sir. It's not working. But it's powered by the sun. I don't understand it.
You tried.
And then you look at the obviously placed wall socket that wasn't there like 10 minutes ago, and you just see the mad scientist. You just see them kind of like curl up, like they go on the floor and curl up. Hi, Igor, just plug it in. Why is this my life?
But number 8, only when away from electromagnetic interference. So pretty much underground.
That can happen. Some devices are very delicate towards electromagnetic interference, like even in real
Then
life.
yeah, only when inside, only when outside.
I'm just
I could
envisioning
imagine.
an anti bear gun that only works when inside. Like I'm just envisioning someone steals the anti-bear gun. It's like an evil poacher. He goes out to hunt bears, and then as he's about to get mauled by the bear, the mad scientist does his monologues. Oh, you foolish little thief! You should have read my instruction manuals that I also made a point to leave on the computer. It's a shame you're too stupid to understand how to open them. Now, as the bear eats your liver, allow me to explain to you what problems you did. The reason I left that one in the open was it was a failure as far as I'm concerned, mainly because it could only work when the lumens did not match natural sunlight. What? It only works when inside, doofus. Now, ta-ta, I hope the bear goes for your lungs last. Mad scientist rants are fun.
Yeah.
Here's another short story. These ones are a lot closer to proper the World of Darkness splat short stories, so I don't have any problems with them. They're useful little snippets on how geniuses and how mania spirits work.
I like the last paragraph. I glowed with pride, some radiation, mostly pride, as I broke through the cloud cover.
Yeah.
So next is the very special rules and systems. Um, and we get to the principle of havoc.
So, yeah, here's the thing. This is the equivalent of paradox for mages. So, here's the thing, right? As a genius, you tap into a world that may not be. If you believe the mad philosophers, you are an avatar of the idea realm. If you believe the artificiers, your crafting works based on the perfect universe in an imperfect landscape. If you're believing the mad physicist, you're essentially crafting non-existence into reality. And if you believe the mad psychologists, you're trying to trick the universe. You're pulling a mage. You're bullshitting the universe into letting this shit stick. The thing is, though, normal mortals, they have horrible effects on your creations. And it's even worse when it's scientists that handle them because they know how the universe works. So when they look at your stuff, unless you've made them a beholden, they will fucking rip it to shreds. At least when it comes to the quantum observation effect. Yeah, most wonders when in the hands of a mortal will go horribly wrong. Now, how does that horribly going wrong happens? How does
So
that
if
happen?
it's dramatic failure, wonder's lost. Um, if you then roll its rank, if it's a success, it turns into an orphan. If it's a failure, it's destroyed. There's
Basically,
out.
the device can rampage. Like, let's say I have made a robot that learns love, and an immortal tries to test out its hug feature, and it just goes psychotic and tries to hug everyone to death. It's gone rogue.
A
That would be an
failure means it.
example.
Yeah, failure means the wonder turns into a violent orphan for the duration of the scene. If it's a success, it acquires a new fault. If it's only an exceptional success, does it suffer no ill effects?
So yeah, that's the other thing. When they handle things like that, stuff in it breaks because again, not everything in the device is made out of real science. Some of it's made out of nonsense, and when they handle nonsense, nonsense breaks apart, which is why you get new failure methods. And here's the thing. I believe the number of faults that a device can have is only based on its rank and durability. If it goes over like I think 5, it'll just break. Like it's just permanently destroyed.
So often it a success just means it breaks.
Especially if you handle it roughly, or if it's a there is a feature you can give to devices called fragile, which makes them easier to make. But I mean, anything goes wrong, they'll break. Havoc is not fun.
Yeah. Intelligent wonders are slightly more resistant. It requires something more than just touch. So actually, the hugging robot will require, well, as it describes here, assault, first aid, or sex to trigger a havoc check.
So, okay, the hugging robot, what happens is it works fine. Like the hugging robot is brought out on a limited test product. The problem is they unfortunately get you know that guy, the guy who you get a writer for a local kids television show, and on this episode tonight, the hugging robot is the author's poorly disguised fetish. The hugging robot then goes on a rampage, killing about 5 dozen people.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. No more. Punches the guy in the face.
I'm just envisioning a mad scientist like okay, you got the crazy pizza man. You got the Steve Jobs looking motherfucker who's trying to understand love itself as a tech bro. You got ultra video game nerd guy who looks like the nerd who looks like the comic book shop owner from The Simpsons. And then you got I don't know like Lara Croft, ancient wonder device raider, and they have to stop a crazy robot singing "What Is Love" as it just as it just hugs people to death through the city.
This is not love. Subject dead. But I do like this with the modifiers. So actually, it says, funny enough, if you do a hug or a pat down of the wonder, it actually gets a positive bonus to its havoc dice. If it's if you conduct a scientific analysis, and same thing for the regular wonders, if you're attempting to basically understand it, a -3 to the havoc check.
Yep. You can talk a crazy creation down.
The cool thing though is, especially with mains, never need to make a havoc check in their native Bardo or Amada field.
Yeah, because they're in their nonsense world. Like let's say you want to create Jurassic Park by stealing dinosaurs from Hollow Earth. The dinosaurs in Hollow Earth work just fine. It's only when people start, harassing them in the zoo they go crazy. Maybe the T-Rex grows wings and starts breathing fire for all you know.
What is love? Certainly not a Nickelodeon set.
God no. But yeah, orphan wonders are a big thing that you can find wandering around or surviving. And one of the things that happens when they're neglected is that it starts mutating. They like normal devices can just turn into horrifying things, even
Because
if it doesn't make sense.
there's not one person holding its mania.
Like even a death ray can spontaneously grow robot legs and start just running around trying to fulfill its purpose.
Because it no longer has a purpose. No one's using it to kill things, and it needs to keep killing.
And then you have to anime speech it and hug it into learning it could channel its destructive nature into, I don't know, disintegrating trees during a forest fire so that it can create a fire break.
Hmm.
The
But
more I
then
think about this setting, the more yeah, this really does gel well. So does the magical girl to a degree because optimism versus the brutality of the world of darkness. This just it's written a lot better.
so then we have the ability to increase your inspiration, much like your what's it in mage? Is it like your arete?
Oh, were you skipping organizing a thesis?
But that is the point.
All right.
You need to engage in a thesis and extensive analysis of what you've thought and done in order to increase your inspiration. These are
Okay.
based on your approaches. So, for instance, a Grimm's thesis must overcome a challenge that infuriates him personally. Klagan's much focus on warning or protecting people from an upcoming disaster. Hoffnung's must has an image of how the world should be, and you have to bring that image closer to reality. A Ned is to seek restitution for the wrongs done to her during her breakthrough or inspired career. And a Stoughton is a journey of discovery, focuses on an aspect of the world that is not entirely understood, as well as parts of their own personality.
But the thing is, theses are not just drawn from your catalyst. That's just kind of the point of view you're writing. So, like, let's say your Grimm thesis is specifically, fuck Dracula. All my homies hate Dracula. Here's how you murder fucking Dracula. It's not
He owes
just
me
that.
$5.
It's not just that. You also include a methodology, experiments that you've done to kill Dracula, that sort of thing.
Your
If
stake throwing knife.
Yeah, like if you make a knife that throws stakes, like it's a knife that when you swing it, a wooden stake flies out of it.
That way they're both wooden. And that way then there's two. It can stab it in its lungs and its heart.
A Hoffnung's thesis is probably just a combination of insane ego trip about how awesome they are, and also I'm just envisioning. Whenever I think of the Hoffnung thesis, I envision Walt Disney on his deathbed, rambling about Epcot and planning it out to a very concerned brother, because that is what he did before he died. He was essentially putting all of his energy into Epcot, into building this community of the future, even as he's in horrible agony and fading in and out of reality. That's what a Hoffnung is. That's what their theses are like.
And once you're done with all your work, it is intelligence plus wits.
Well, I'm also envisioning for the Cloggin, just to give other examples because I think these are fun to do. The Cloggin is Why the zombie virus is a dead end unless you do the following steps. And then you just demonstrate like all of the zombie outbreaks that the collaboration group has accidentally caused.
Hoffnung is, how do I summon my OC?
The young need is essentially my revenge plan to make them all love me. And the
And
Stonen
this how
is here is how you can get a proper communication with the deep ones and not go crazy by looking at them, even though I think they're really cool. Here is how you get Cthulhu's phone number so that you can have tea parties at night.
just don't look at what you're drinking.
No, look at what you're drinking. It helps. It helps because you go blind. You start bleeding from your eyes. It helps. It also makes what you're drinking taste better.
So you have obviously then your success gains you the dot of inspiration upon spending experience points. Um,
By the way, you can use the remember, you only used part of an orphan for your child eating machine. You can use
so
the
you
other
can
part of the orphan in your thesis.
yeah use your beholden to help with that.
Well, they also tell you how to create Beholden, which is basically what you
Yeah.
do is you gaslight them into insanity. You essentially destroy their understanding of reality. It's kind of amazing.
Actually, this would be fun. It would be people who are trying to make YouTube videos about like how it's not a flat Earth, and they just finally come out with a video saying I was entirely wrong. No, the flat Earth is real. There is no curvature to the Earth.
Oh, remember that in this setting that other people can see the insanity. So you can actually recreate the Bedford experiments and actually, but like on another part of the world. And if you put enough mania and succeed well enough, you could actually go, yeah, see, look, you're seeing stuff that you shouldn't be able to see like 500 miles away. Explain that, science. But then, because of how reality works, what'll happen is the experiment will be unrecreatable. So what they'll do is they'll just straight up say, "Nah, dude, you just used like Photoshop."
They also have a very funny rule on page 282 about having massive battles and actually having minions fight.
Also, yes, dirty work. So what your Igors are also good at is doing things like trying to not die against Brock Sampson or stealing the secret formula from Mr. Krabs. That's the kind of their thing. Also, summary execution. You can legitimately go, "You have failed me for the last time," and randomly murder one of your goons. You can totally do that.
It is an obligation for transgression, though.
Yep.
But you can't tolerate a bumbler.
Also, hey Tech, we are showing a really fun fan splat that was made by the same guy who did Vampire the Masquerade Night Roads. It's rough as hell. It has certain issues with how it's formatted because it doesn't have bookmarks. I think you could easily cut about 100 pages down. I think it repeats itself one or two times too many. But it gels really well with the World of Darkness. It's pre-God Machine, but you can just slot right in. It can
Then they
still
give a
slot right in.
yeah.
It's really neat.
Then they give us the various realms.
Oh yeah, there's other realms. These are called Bardoses. They're basically. Oh, never mind. I'm wrong.
Well, I'm just gonna try to catch up as quickly as I can.
In short, mad science is really funny. You gain the ability to gain the equivalent of your blood back by explaining in a 30-minute psychotic rant how you're going to kill the person with your infinite death trap.
So it's the technobabble made jocracy sort of stuff, like from the from the technocracy, where you could
If
just
you
magic babble your way out of paradox.
if you really love playing Iteration X or the Void Engineers and you want to bring it to the Chronicles of Darkness, this is a really good splat for this. It's rough as hell, but it's very fun. It also allows you to do sphere experimentations to make magical devices. Well, not magical, super science devices. Like just to make a armored car like from James Bond, It only requires Sphere 1 in protection, well, Axiom 1 protection, Axiom 1 transport. If you want
Okay,
to make a,
Which car from James Bond are we talking? The one that goes underwater as well? Or are we just talking like the
you would
default?
need to make that one transport level 2.
Yeah, I was about to say like that seems a little bit.
If it's
also
just like a
not
really fast car that doesn't need gas, it's just level 1.
not Nino. Would this be better as part of the God Machine? I don't know. I think God Machine would be a bit too much.
I think you could have it be a part of the essence of why they do what they do, but I feel like Mania
You
works better as Azoth.
you could though do a God Machine Chronicle where the God Machine is an orphan.
Like an ancient orphan, because here's one of the other cool things. Some of the oldest wonders actually are rumored to come from Irem.
Well, yeah, no, no. This would be perfect. The most ancient idea was the concept of a god, a protector who would handle everything. But
Oh, and
this
then you
guy
have
died.
like the Exarchs build it, and they were all
Well,
geniuses, and then
this guy died, murdered in the monolatry period of Canaan. The God Machine still exists, and it has been growing and growing and growing, and now the entire world has a little bit of it in there. And for some reason, maybe someone got a hold of it, or it finally awoken, but it looks upon humanity and begins its plans.
what I think this really people are trying to compare this to the God Machine and use it as that. I think it works better with Prometheans, and it really works well with Deviants, because a lot of Deviants could just be the product of mad science.
Very much so.
But just to really quickly catch up, the way Genius works is a scientist or someone who works on a curiosity. They basically look into a mystery. They investigate more and more as a sort of cancerous tumor-like light bulb goes into their head and gives them more information on how to do the things. They can't explain why the things happen. They don't know why they can make it happen. People can't repeat what they do. They are wonder makers, but only they can make them. And they can't really explain it anymore in scientific terms. They can't really do science anymore. So they become mad scientists. They are aware they are crazy, at least some of them are, but they also seek to try to better humanity since it's the only connection to morality they have left. Those who throw it away basically just become Dr. Herbert West Reanimator.
And I
Their villains are basically where they think science went wrong, and the oldest version of that is the scientific method was a mistake.
Oh, good God!
They go hard into mysticism and the occult. The next level
Well, I'm already
is
seeing.
hmm?
Sorry, I'm already seeing references to Lemuria in here, and I'm already like, all
Yep.
right, we hit the true crazy juice. Let's fucking go.
The
well,
the
I
opening
think we
guide to the navigators, which is your mad physicist, is Time Cube. They suggest read a bit
Oh,
of Time Cube to get an idea on the type
oh
of
no,
crazy.
yeah.
oh no.
I I I do think though we should move on to the next portion, which is to talk about the realms of mad science as sort of the final capstone to it. Uh, the concept of the Bardo. These are essentially your horizon realms from Mage.
So it is, but it's the opposite of. It's also kind of the opposite, but it also isn't. So
Because it exists.
it
These things do
it
exist.
was speculated to exist. These are ideas that were cooked up that were based on what could have been, like the canals on Mars, for example, or the
So,
idea of a
so
hollow
yeah.
Earth.
So, for instance, the
The celestial spheres, like the
yeah,
celestial spheres that held back the firmament, that also existed at one point. That's where angels come from.
and these exist. These megas, hint obliquely at realms weird in their own, beyond the farthest crystal sphere. So they could find remains of Dante's system in the cosmos, or who knows what else they could find there.
You can still find Christian and pagan angels that push the 7 planets around the Earth. You can
Then you
still
have
find them there.
the Gray Plateau of Sosuka,
This is
which
essentially a combination of Leng and Shangri-La.
it is an amalgamation of every badly run empire in human history, magnified tenfold, the result of bitterness and failed visions of brotherhood and harmony. So this is
This has already hit like true Gonzo territory.
yeah, this is just 1984, the setting.
It hits a certain itch that I think works because you can play it as tragic because again, you can see things that only you can. Your perception of reality is broken. The best way to describe it is a genuine mad scientist you can play in this game is absolute Martian Manhunter.
But
You can play them as a scholastic, and their idea of how the universe works is that the Martian in their head is just the font of where their ideas come from.
here's this one, The Grid. It is the sci-fi version of computers before the internet.
Which actually kind of ties into, remember how Mage had Alan Turing get killed before he could create virtual space? It kind of
Let's not
ties into
talk about
that.
Ascension.
Well, it's just, you want to play Tron? This is how you play Tron.
Right, but again, let's not talk about Ascension when talking about this because this is a very different game. I'm already feeling it.
We then have the Hollow
Spiritually,
Earth.
yes. Also, yes, the
To
Hollow
the
Earth exists.
about 10 miles
Yep,
below the Earth's
I
crust.
noticed that.
The Nazis are there.
Of course.
And I believe it contains is drowned in pseudo sunlight. And here, dinosaurs stride side by side with the earliest lungfish, while primitive humans live savage lives of violence and passion.
Yep, the standard ape men of old pulp adventures can be found here. Also, if you wanted to have a chronicle where
It is. Yeah.
a mad scientist tries to create Jurassic Park by poaching from the Hollow Earth, you could totally do it.
Well, no, it's also this. It is a clearinghouse for every archaeological and paleontological misstep ever made by human science.
Oh yeah, you can find the Peltdown Man down there.
You can find the well, now that we know that dinosaurs probably had feathers, these are featherless dinosaurs.
So we can, in fact, throw Jurassic Park here.
You can. And
They do move in herds.
Also, you know the very slow stop motion sleepy dinosaurs? You'll find them down there too.
And then there's Limeria, which
All right.
it is a smoldering wasteland due to the last invisible war.
Basically, the Lemurian lodges got very angry at the Free Society of Mad Geniuses, and they basically waged war against them around the same time as World War II. And some of their numbers worked with those guys, and then the other guys worked with the other guys, but it was only tangentially. It just kind of lined up at the same time because it was their last attempt to try to enforce their view on how super science and mad genius should work.
All right, quick timeout. I'm just throwing the timeout signal out here. So wait. So Lemuria, you're saying like the idea is that like all these discredited theories end up in this Hollow Earth, right?
Not in the Hollow
Not
Earth.
in the Hollow
They're
Earth.
basically
It's that-
horizon spheres, essentially.
It's that
Demi-dimensions.
Okay.
It's that because geniuses see the world differently. It's not regular science. It includes all of the discredited concepts of science that have been, are now, and will be.
You can have a health machine powered by Orgon energy, for example.
Oh, okay. So timeout then. You're telling me that they did that, but they didn't include the idea of having a continent of giant lemurs down there.
That might have been the second or first race, actually. Because the
Yeah,
third
who
race
knows?
are the snake people.
Of course they are.
But again,
But-
you can also go to Mars. There were the Martians.
Sometimes called
All right.
Cydonia or Barsoom. Hell yeah, I know where we're going.
All right. I'm just saying that the idea of fighting giant psychic lemurs in the Hollow Earth.
You could do
Well,
that.
they're not in the Hollow Earth. It's the
Well, no,
best
they
way
could
to
be.
describe. No.
They could be.
The way it's described is that the way these Bardos works are they're kind of not there, but they are, and sometimes you accidentally pop into them. That's where you get the crazy travelogue stories of, I was flying over the Antarctic and I accidentally got abducted by Nazi moon UFOs. Because there's like little pinholes where you can come in and out. And the same
All right.
applies to the wreckage of Lemuria.
All right, because
Then we-
that's just what I'm going through. Because Lemuria historically was a discredited theory about the idea of how do we have lemur fossils in both India and in Africa? That doesn't make sense. There has to be a lost continent that connected them.
They based it, I think, a little more on the Conan stories and a little more on the Marvel Comics take on them, where they were an empire of snake people that may have worshipped Shumagorath.
But then we have Spaceship Colossus. It is a O'Neill cylinder at the L4
Adam.
point.
Yeah?
Adam, we have the Gundams.
Yeah, you do.
We have the
Flickered to life
Gundams.
in 1984 when science fiction had largely abandoned its starfaring dreams. It's now a rundown hole in the sky full of unemployed Maine dock workers, bitter atomists trying to create one utopia or another, and failing mechanical systems. But yes, this is also probably the place where you have the Gundams.
Which you can make if you... I think you need, like, automata level, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4. They don't have to be intelligent, but, like, you need that, and then, like, you need to build it out of a certain size, and then you need catastrophe to make the weapons. But you can make a Gundam if you wanted.
And then we have, finally, examples.
Oh shit! Vulcan, Planet X, and
Planet X.
fucking Nemesis.
And Autochthon, the planets that were proposed to exist.
Oh, that's great.
Vulcan's a fun one, actually. The guy that claimed to have discovered it is also, I think, the guy that found Neptune. But the whole thing about it is that he was trying to account for the variations in Mercury's orbit, which that's how we found Neptune. And the issue is, of course, that we didn't understand relativity at the time. So obviously, the thing that has to be influencing Mercury's orbit patterns getting weird has to be another planet.
It makes the most logical sense.
Right.
Well, you know what I realized another one would be? So now that Pluto is not a planet, the fungi from Yuggoth are fucking pissed.
Yeah, you could totally have them down there. That's the other thing. These are just suggestions. Remember, this is from Chronicle. This is New World of Darkness / Chronicles 1.0. This is toolkit. If you want the psychic lemurs from Lemuria as like the second attempt by them to make the new race, you could.
You want the first city? Go ahead.
I mean, they hint that the first wonders came from Irem, so they're slightly tied to Mummy.
And also remember multiple dimensions.
Well, the thing is, if they're referencing Irem, they're probably actually leaning more on like the pulp novel stuff. About
They are,
Irem.
but you could kind of play with that.
Yeah, because this whole thing seems very pulp inspired. Just
it is.
They make a point. One of the inspirations of it was Doc Savage.
Doc Savage, and also the Venture Brothers. I think it works.
I do think this works. And while later they do bring up the sort of madness and how the mad scientists to go a bit more mad.
Oh, that reminds me. One of the funniest things. Do you want to know why Vulcan is still around as a bardo? Because one of the variants of Lemurians, because there's 5 lodges, one of them is fucking pissed general relativity was made real. And is an actual facet of existence. Nikola Tesla was one of them, by the way.
This just sounds like a fan splat for Mage the Ascension at this point.
It is, but I think it works because it brings it to the New World of Darkness. And it still complements Deviant and Promethean.
Right.
And they actually do have, in some cases, like a built-up lore. Like there's a whole thing of like, there was time travel groups, but they kind of fucked up.
Well, every time they try, it just something breaks. Like, you can't really change history, not really. And now there's madness, basically, when you're doing your experiments. Eventually, you can go crazy.
Yeah. I do think, though, I don't know if we want to go on more, because I think we've got a thorough understanding of the book.
Yes and no. I'm just going to very quickly skim through to see if there's any more. Oh, don't lag out on me. Thank you.
There's like 200 pages more of this book, Adam.
Yeah,
I'm aware. I'm just very quickly going through. They go through styles. I'm just going very quickly. Styles, cost of making changes. What's this one? Storytelling and antagonist. Okay, I can just sum that up really quick. So we'll stop here. Unfortunately, there's another 200 pages. I did link to where you can get this splat. I did link to it in the description, so you can just read it there. But in short, the antagonists for the setting, there's two of them. The first are the Lemurians, who essentially, the way they work is their version of reality should be made real, damn it. And they go into war with the other free associations of mad scientists. One that we did not get to, which is the kind of the equivalent of the Strix, or you know that one vampire group that's like mysterious and number based,
Yeah, 7, 13,
something like that.
8. I don't remember.
But there's an equivalent of that called the Clock Stoppers, which are these entities that seek to completely suck mania out of the world. And it's somewhat hinted that mania is the reason that progress happened, because the concept is the first geniuses came about when humanity chose to reject being an animal. When humanity
So
tamed fire, when humanity progressed beyond the most basic of tool usage,
All
that is
right,
when the
all I'm
first
saying.
genius was born.
they want it's a group that wants us to return to monkey.
Yeah, I was about to say all I'm seeing is this is either anarcho-primitives or this is somebody who saw the opening to 2001: A Space Odyssey and didn't really get it.
Probably the latter. They thought the Fly remake was bad too, so you know. So it's a fan splat, and I'm gonna try to. I'm trying to be partial. I'm trying to be impartial, I should say, because I'm partial to it. I like this splat. It scratches a certain itch. But its formatting is bad, and as mentioned, you can just play Iteration X, Void Engineer, New World Order. You can play a Technocrat Mage.
This is a very long book for what it is when I'm looking at this. By all
But
means, kudos to them for putting all this into a single document. However, I would recommend not putting this all into a single document.
I
but
think
there's some
the only thing that it really needs are bookmarks so that you can jump around.
but I think with this there's a bit of a freshness to it. And a bit of, again, the pulpiness. Like
It takes an old idea
you can
from Mage and kind of makes it a little new for the Chronicles of Darkness. It slots in fairly well with the Chronicles of Darkness. As I mentioned, you can make it adjacent to the God Machine, but I think it's an excellent Demiurge splat. Because a lot of the faults automata get are very similar to Promethean's Disquiet Field.
I think that was by intention in design because this almost certainly came out after Promethean First Edition.
It probably did, but I did like the nod though. It hits a certain tone. It also has this is something that was brought up actually during chat in our Discord, which I have also linked. This book allows you to play two different types of games. You are the tragic person who sees something that no others can. You see a reality, a possibility, something you can do, and you can do these impossibilities, and no one believes you. And these ideas aren't even yours necessarily. Are they? Are you still you? Because your brain kind of broke. The process of becoming a genius is similar to becoming a deviant. Something in you internally breaks. Your mind is scorched by the light of creation, and you don't come out of it whole. Are you you? Or is it the Martian speaking through you? You can play it that way. You can play the tragically broken person. Or you can say fuck it and play Dr. Evil. You just go full, let's say fuck it. Let's transgress and just go full goofy ass supervillain. And that is a style of duality that I think nails World of Darkness. For example, Werewolf the Apocalypse. You can play it as seriously trying to learn the mistakes of your forebears, or you could just say fuck it and go full Apocalypse now and just fucking destroy Pentex. Vampire, you can play the tragic monster, or you can go full Kane, bro. I
and I
think
think
Genius
that
nails it.
work yeah, that works well. I do think that they do try to have some ties with other things. If I were to run this, you run it just on its own. Of just mad scientists doing mad scientist shit.
And they do have factors for that, like how their wonders actually work on what they call metanormals. But yeah, this is similar to Old World of Darkness, where it kind of works best as its own splat. It works better with some other splats from the New World. Again, I think it works perfectly for Prometheans and Deviant. But it may not necessarily work as well with the God Machine. You'd have to do some retooling. The book is really rough, and it's to the point where I don't think I can rate it higher than... I'm going to be harsh on the rating, even though I really like the book. I can't rate it higher than playable. It is going through the axioms and what the ranks of the axioms do. There's a lot of them, and it is difficult to go through them if you're making a wonder, because most wonders require, much like Mage, it requires a combination of spheres to achieve.
And unlike Mage, there's not a handy dandy cheat guide, basically.
And that is to its detriment. So I can't rate it higher than, I would say, a solid playable. If it went through the hands of an editor and they cut about 100 pages, I think you can easily cut at least 100 pages, probably even more than that. It would go up to
Oh,
high
for sure.
decent to low good for me. But right now, and forever and more, Genius 1.0, or in this case 1.1, I think, it's a playable.
I would agree. Yeah, it's playable.
Yeah, that's really about as high as you can rate it. Is that it's functional as a game? Is it something that you should deliberately seek out and attempt to collect? No, I mean it's free, so it's not that hard to get. But it's not like this is a you need to pick this up or at least skim it sort of book. This is a you can leave it out of your collection.
Yeah, I would say that you can take or leave it. I will say that if you liked Technocracy Mages, I'd recommend it. It really fulfills that kind of itch for the New World of Darkness. And it does it pretty well. But other than that, no, it's a little too rough. It needs an editor. But no, kudos to it. Even with all of its faults, I bit into it pretty strongly. I like the splat. I think it handled the writing really well. I think it slots in pretty nicely. And most importantly, it uses actually good references to the setting. Not just the World of Darkness. I mean, like, specifically, it uses good examples of mad science. It actually knows its material. It knows what it wants to be.
So with that, I think I would say to look through it on your own if you have the chance.
It's free.
Definitely some
It
interesting
is
stuff you
free,
can pull
and
out.
you can definitely pull stuff out of it. And I've linked it, so
Yeah.
just feel free. If you'd like to look through, take stuff you like, use it.
And then next week, well, I think we have a very interesting video next week.
Yeah, that's going to be.
And it will we're gonna try to have it on Wednesday in honor of the holiday, if we could call it that.
Day of Remembrance, I think, would be a better term for it.
Yom HaShoah is what we say in Hebrew. We are going to be releasing our first video on our look through the entirety of the Shoah book for Wraith.
It is looking to at least be a 3-parter, I would say. Might even be a 4-parter, because each section is pretty big and heavy, especially the last two.
But as
There's a lot.
the story needs to be told.
I've said that multiple times during that video. Oh no! But before then, I'm pretty inclined to want to do a stream too. Before then, so you're still getting the stream. I'm just gonna try to see if I can swing that video on Wednesday. At worst, and I don't want to, it might be Thursday, but I'm pretty sure I can get it out on Wednesday. As for what we're going to cover next week, I don't think it'll be another fan splat. I have no idea what we're going to cover.
Put some recommendations in our Discord.
Yeah, feel free to suggest recommendations on our Discord. We do look at those, and I will actually run a poll. I'll probably start the poll either Wednesday or Thursday, give or take how much progress I make on the video, though.
With that, good night, everybody.
We finished
And
most of a
remember,
book. Science!